Chapter 240. Li Chengqian was aghast. Isn't this too terrifying? At this moment, he finally understood why Zhang Feng wanted to find a way out for them. Turns out he already knew that something was going to happen, and it was going to be a big deal. This Guanlong Group. This terrifying name. Is he going to make a move? Li Chengqian was somewhat alarmed. This name, Zhang Feng didn't explain clearly. Not only can he influence the rise and fall of a dynasty, but he also has the 5 surnames and 7 hopes behind him. This was the most fatal point. If his family was really a businessman, then he would definitely turn around and run, immediately returning home, even if it meant moving his family. They couldn't bear the anger of Guanlong Group. Moreover, they were the instigator of this matter. Wait a minute. Li Chengqian seemed to have thought of something, hurriedly asked. Brother Zhang Feng, this matter was started by you. If the imperial family and Guanlong Group were to fight, then wouldn't you be in the most danger? However, Zhang Feng smiled instead. If you hear that your subordinates are going to rebel, but your subordinate, would you care about his relationship with a tavern manager? And a 20-year-old sloppy shopkeeper at that? This is where I am safe. They still look down on me. To put it bluntly, their target is the emperor, and the instigator of this matter, which is your family. But I am the safest existence. You don't have to worry about my safety. However, I'm only guessing about this matter. As for whether the Guanlong Group has reached an agreement with the emperor, it's still unknown. The best way is for all of your juniors to retreat to Longyu Road immediately. In this way, even if the situation really explodes to an incalculable extent, you won't lose much. Zhang Feng didn't dare to speak too confidently. If the emperor had reached an agreement with Guanlong Group, then their actions would be useless. But if they didn't reach an agreement, then who knows what would happen next. If the matter was too serious, Lao Li and the rest would be frightened, and if they angered Li Shimin, then they would die even faster. However, these words were not the case in Li Chengqian's ears. It would be better if Zhang Feng didn't say anything comforting at the end, but now that he said it, the trouble was really big. Li Chengqian asked with some worry, "Then what do you think if the emperor is not prepared for this matter, or if the emperor doesn't know about Guanlong Group's conspiracy, then what should we do?" What should we do? Zhang Feng really didn't know. But after thinking, he finally said, "Well, if the emperor is not prepared if this matter happens, then we have to divert everyone's attention." How? Hey! I say, why is everyone in your family so strange? Even the emperor isn't anxious? The emperor doesn't know how to be anxious. The eunuch is the eunuch. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. Seeing that Li Chengqian was so anxious that he was sweating profusely, he scratched his head and said, "Right now, the best way is to create a war at the border." How do you make it? Li Chengqian was anxious. The Guanlong Group's influence was very wide. If they didn't make any preparations now, then the consequences would be all over. Let me put it this way. If you were the emperor, then if you encountered this matter, would you divert the attention of this war? Li Chengqian didn't understand Zhang Feng's meaning and hurriedly asked, "Brother Zhang, do you mean to artificially create a war? Or are the Turks about to start a war?" Li Chengqian couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure it out at all. He didn't know what this war meant, but since Zhang Feng could predict the conspiracy between the Turks and Tubo, then what would it be this time? I heard from my father that you said before that whoever starts a war first will lose this game, right? And now Tubo and Tuyuhun of the Turks are vaguely showing signs of alliance. If we rashly start a war now, then this fuse will explode, won't it? It won't. Zhang Feng waved his hands dismissively. As for this matter, I said that the emperor isn't anxious, but the eunuch is. Why don't you think about it? Since even you know about it, how can the officials in the royal court not think of it? Do you think that those officials in the royal court are incompetent? What I mean is that if I were that person, I would arrange a military deployment. The lifeline of the Guanlong Group is concentrated in Longyu, Longxi, and other places. Even the Silk Road is an important economic region for them. Then, if we were to send a few important figures there in a high-profile manner, such as the Crown Prince, to patrol the world, he would think twice. And because of this matter, the attention of the Turks will also be drawn and their operations will be paused. Although it won't be to the extent of starting a war, the tense atmosphere will be the breakthrough to deal with the Guanlong Group. If he dares to make a move, he should first consider whether the economic lifeline he has established there will be lost because of this. Zhang Feng smiled confidently. Pointing to the dazed group, he looked at Li Changqian and said, "This is the so-called besieging way to save Zhao. This is also the reason why I have you all join the army. It won't be a real war, and it will serve as a deterrent. You all will be able to advance smoothly through this matter. I believe that the officials in the royal court won't let go of this opportunity, right? How about it? Do you want to be promoted?" Chapter 241. Li Changqian fell silent. This matter was too important. Putting everything else aside, if the crisis of the Guanlong group was really resolved according to Zhang Feng's words, it would indeed be effective. However, he still did not know the deeper meaning behind it. But what if this operation, for example, was to let people know that the Crown Prince had personally come to the drill ground at the Longyu border? What kind of effect would that have? Presumably, the Turks would be the first to not let him off? Then, let's talk about a double-edged sword. Once the Turks could not help but assassinate him, then an all-out war would be triggered. Although it was good to attack Wei to rescue Zhao, the prerequisite was that Guanlong and the Turks would have some misgivings. And what would their misgivings be? Li Changqian could not figure it out. At this moment, one after another, Cheng Chimo and the others woke up from the poem and the mood that Zhang Feng had described. Seeing that Li Changqian had also sunk into deep thought, they could not help but be shocked. Could it be that Zhang Feng was really a god? 2 poems were enough to make everyone look like this? Originally, he had thought that only the fist and Du Dabing's mouth were the most powerful knives. But now, Cheng Chimo suddenly felt that Zhang Feng's mouth was the real sharp weapon. If this was placed on a battlefield with thousands of soldiers and horses, then wouldn't it mean that as long as he sat there and shouted 2 poems, the enemy would disarm? Damn it! At this moment, Zhang Feng finally heaved a sigh of relief. He was a person who threw a brick to attract jade. He wanted these people to find their own path and not blindly follow the crowd. What only the imperial court was suitable to serve the country. That was all bullshit and all talk. If everyone in the world was like that, then who the hell would be guarding the border? And now, after drinking with Lao Li and the others 2 nights ago, and after hearing that the Turk spy had been caught, until today, there were no other rumors or any movement from the Turks. Zhang Feng could not help but feel that something was wrong. What exactly was wrong? Zhang Feng didn't know. However, he could faintly sense that there was a pair of enormous hands that surpassed the Tubo Turks. Perhaps the controller was overlooking everything in Chang'an. This feeling made Zhang Feng very unhappy. Therefore, when Yu Du Go and the others were chatting, Zhang Feng could faintly guess that it was the Guanlong group. At this time, the 5 surnames and 7 hopes would not make a move. However, this Guanlong group was an alliance established in the Guanlong region by the 5 surnames and 7 hopes to handle the economy. That was why it was commonly known as the Guanlong group. The Guanlong group was bound to be paying attention to every move in Chang'an. Although Li Shimin had spread the matter of the cooperative to various states, the source was still in Chang'an, in Li Shimin. This was the most important thing. He didn't know what Li Shimin was thinking, but he, Zhang Feng, had to think of everything that he could think of before Li Shimin. He had to screen out the most correct way to deal with it. And finally, from the moment when he instigated Chen Tiniu and the others to enlist in the army, Zhang Feng finally thought of the best solution. That was the garrison troops that Chang Yaojin and Li Jing had deployed in Yuzhou and Longyu Road. Only when the garrison troops moved, or when a heavyweight in the imperial court suddenly went to the garrison in Longyu, would everyone's guess shift to the garrison in Longyu. Thus, Chang'an would have a chance to breathe. Otherwise, not to mention Li Shimin, as long as the Guanlong group made a move, then in minutes, everyone in Chang'an City would be finished. Right now, all the arrangements had become a wedding dress for the Guanlong group. In the end, when Zhang Feng was immersed in organizing all of this, Li Changqian and the others quietly left. They had to leave. This matter was too big. On the one hand, Zhang Feng had succeeded in activating the enthusiasm of Du Go and the others to join the army. On the other hand, they also learned from Li Changqian that they didn't want to hear the 2 words Guanlong. How could they possibly sit still and do nothing? Seeing Zhang Feng in a daze, they hurriedly got up and left. A moment later, everyone followed the gloomy Li Changqian into the imperial study. After seeing Li Shimin, everyone hurriedly knelt down. Son greets father. Son greets the emperor. Rise. Li Shimin put down the booklet in his hand, rubbed his forehead and asked, "How was it?" What did you get from the tavern? Father, son wants to go to the military camp with anywhere Mo and Zhang's son to gain experience. Li Chengqian said. Hearing this, Li Shimin was stunned. Why do you suddenly want to go to the military camp to gain experience? Tell me, did Brother Zhang Feng give you some bewitching potion? Li Shimin's interest was piqued. He simply stopped thinking about the matter at hand and looked at them curiously. In his memory, these people except for Du Go, were all well-known bullies in Chang'an City. If not for the fact that they didn't do anything bad, Li Shimin would have already questioned them. But this group of rascals actually wanted to go to the military camp? Li Shimin couldn't help but be interested. Father. Yesterday when we left the palace, we wanted to experience Zhang Feng's spirit, but we were convinced by his 2 poems. What kind of poems are they? They actually made you want to go to the military camp? Hearing this, Li Chengqian tilted his head and nudged Du Go with his elbow. Du Go then reacted and imitated Zhang Feng's tone, saying, Drunk, looking at swords under the light, dreaming of blowing the horn in the camp. 800 miles of troops under the scorching heat, 50 miles of sound beyond the Great Wall, soldiers on the battlefield in autumn. The bright moon of the Qin and Han dynasties, the long march of thousands of miles did not return, but the flying generals of Longcheng did not teach the horses to cross the Yin Mountains. Chapter 242. At the moment Du Go opened his mouth, Li Shimin was shocked. Xiao Gizi hurriedly threw a brand new piece of paper in front of Li Shimin. Li Shimin followed Du Go's intonation and began to write. But Long Chengfei is here, I won't teach Huma to cross Yin Mountain. Good poem. Good poem. Li Shimin looked at the poem in his hand. Every stroke, coupled with Du Go's somewhat tender voice, had a different flavor. Li Shimin felt as if he was seeing the battle at Helan Mountain. This is the poem that Brother Zhang Feng gave you? Li Shimin seemed to understand Zhang Feng's meaning. Seeing everyone nod, he waved his hand and said, Pass down the order. Let Wei Zhang, Du Ruhui, and Cheng Yaojin enter the palace quickly. Yes. Xiao Gizi hurriedly left. Li Shimin waved his hand and dismissed everyone. Then he said, Cheng Qian, did Brother Zhang Feng say anything else? Or did he say that the Turks are about to make a move? He did not believe that Zhang Feng would say something like this for no reason. Since he had persuaded everyone to join the army and made such a poem, something big must have happened. What could it be? Li Shimin frowned and fell into deep thought. Now, Chang'an City was thriving. Large quantities of trade goods poured into Chang, and from all over the world like floodwaters. What was this? This made Li Shimin see a glimmer of prosperity. At this moment, Li Chengqian waited for the palace maids, eunuchs, and guards outside the door to leave. Then he immediately had Zhang Sun, Wei Shuyu, and Cheng Chimo guard the door. At the door he said, Father, I heard 2 words from Brother Zhang Feng. Guanlong? Guanlong. They spoke almost in unison. Li Shimin and Li Chengqian both said the same word. Hearing this, Li Shimin was shocked. This is impossible. Now, everything in Chang'an City, as well as Liangzhou and Luozhou, was thriving. How could there be any bad signs? Did Brother Zhang Feng say that after drinking? Li Shimin had some doubts. However, Li Chengqian shook his head and said, Imperial Father, Brother Zhang Feng said that he wanted to tell you about this the night you were drinking, but you were all drunk in the end. He said that Imperial Father wants to seize the economy, which will inevitably cause the dissatisfaction of the Guanlong group. Therefore, he proposed to divert the attention of the Guanlong group. Only in this way will I have a chance to deal with it. Hearing this, Li Shimin's expression turned serious again. With Guanlong group's ability, they could find out about this matter in minutes. However, until now, he had not received any information from the Guanlong Corporation. Could it be that the Guanlong Corporation was also observing? Impossible. This was not the Guanlong Corporation's way of doing things. If the Guanlong Corporation wanted to cause trouble, all they needed to do was to cut off all the trade routes to Chang'an. But now, looking at the reports on Chang'an's abundance of goods on the desk, as well as the piles of goods, from the warehouses in the imperial city to where all the merchants stocked up, there were even many large items that were stockpiled on the streets of Chang'an City. How could this be a sign that the Guanlong Corporation wanted to cut off the trade routes? And Zhang Feng would definitely not speak without thinking. Tell me everything that happened in the past 2 days. Do go, tell me what you think about this. Li Shimin waved his hand, indicating for the two to sit down, then returned to the dragon chair and picked up the teacup. He wanted to drink a mouthful of water to moisten his dry throat, but the hand holding the teacup could not stop trembling. Replying to your majesty, this matter is like this. Du Go and Li Chengqian told Li Shimin in detail everything that happened in the small tavern. At this time, Li Shimin finally understood why Zhang Feng strongly recommended Li Chengqian and the others to go to the border. If they were merchants, then this was really a good opportunity to soar into the sky. Li Shimin could not help but feel a trace of guilt. Until now, brother Zhang Feng had been thinking for him. But what about him? Although he was not a real merchant, wasn't the entire Tang dynasty run by him? If that was the case, he could also be considered a merchant. But this matter, Li Shimin thought about it carefully, and indeed found a trace of strangeness. That was, the goods of these merchants were basically transported in, and very few of them were transported out. Could this be? Something was not right. Only entering and not exiting. Once the Guanlong group started to suppress Chang'an, then these hoarded goods would be Li Shimin's life. At this time, if there was a trace of bad news, then the first to panic would definitely be the merchants, and then it would cause panic among the people. Only now did Li Chengqian and Du Go finish recording everything that they had seen and heard. Including the words that Zhang Feng and old Xiaoxia had said, Li Chengqian spoke clearly. Then Li Chengqian said, "Father, I think it's better for me to go to Longyu. This matter has not really exploded, which means that the Guanlong group is deploying even greater suppression. If we don't take precautions first, then we will definitely suffer heavy losses. Father's plan to seize economic power will also die in the womb. On the contrary, it will help the Guanlong group." So, Li Chengqian excitedly knelt down and said, "Father, I request to go to Longyu's border. With the crown prince's name of patrolling on behalf of the heavens, this will undoubtedly attract the attention of all forces, and Chang'an's crisis will be relieved. As long as Chang'an's crisis can be resolved, then it won't be so easy for the Guanlong group to plot again." "No! Your Highness, you can't do this." At this time, Wei Zheng's voice could be heard from the outside. Following Wei Zheng were Du Ruhui, Feng Xianling, Zhang Sun Wuji, and Cheng Yaojin. Even Yu Qigong and other generals came together. Chapter 243. While they were talking, Du Ruhui presented a booklet with both hands. "Your Majesty, something happened in Chang'an." Hearing that, Li Shimin's expression suddenly changed. "What?" He hurriedly took the booklet from Du Ruhui's hand and waved his hand. Du Go was also driven out. Du Ruhui didn't care at all. "Your Majesty, when we came here just now, we felt that Chang'an was very strange these 2 days. As for what was strange, I couldn't tell. In the past 3 days, the silver in all the prefectures of the Tang dynasty was basically used up. Almost all the merchants only borrowed and didn't save. The money they saved was not as much as the money they lent. And all the goods in all the prefectures were piled up like mountains. It was too strange. So when we thought about it, we faintly felt that something was wrong. Just now at the door, I happened to hear the conversation between the Crown Prince and Du Go. So I thought, could it be that the suppression of the Guanlong group has begun?" Li Shimin's expression could not help but abruptly change. He finally understood what was wrong in Chang'an City. It seemed to be thriving, but the goods from Zhenla and other countries were basically in the city. Few people transported the goods out. This was absolutely impossible. Which merchant, after getting the goods, didn't sell them all over the world? But now when he thought of Guanlong, Li Shimin's forehead couldn't help but be covered with a fine layer of cold sweat. At this time, Yu Qigong cupped his fists and the armor all over his body clanked. "Your Majesty, I'm going back to Chang'an to report the military situation. But on the way, I also found something wrong. Even the shadow of the Guanlong group, which I rarely saw before, appeared among these people. I think, is the seemingly prosperous business in Chang'an City an illusion created by the Guanlong group? Then why do you think he did this?" Li Shimin waved his hand and asked. Yu Qigong thought for a while and said with a dignified face, "I'm not good at the business skills, but I know military books. There is a saying in military books that if you want to break the morale of the army, you must first destroy its foundation. In other words, rations and fodder. But now this old official combined with the abnormal situation in Chang'an, This old official feels that this could be deliberately created by the Guanlong group in order to make the emperor consume a huge amount of financial resources in a short period of time, and then carry out. As he spoke, Yu Qigong made a clenching motion with his hand. This scene caused Li Shimon's eyelids to twitch violently. At this moment, Du Ruhui added, even at this moment, the crown prince is patrolling the area in the name of the emperor. Even though he can suppress the Tufan and the Turks, and even intimidate them, this doesn't affect the Guanlong group in the slightest. Perhaps, Guanlong might even think that this is a signal for the emperor to declare war. Therefore, I think that it's not the right time yet. We can't act rashly. If the Guanlong group really wants to suppress us, we have to wait until there is some progress in this matter. Now we must not act rashly. If we act, it means that we have taken the initiative to launch a counterattack. This will only make the Guanlong group crazily suppress us. They might even join forces with the Tubo and the other countries. Li Shimon was a little shocked. Prime Minister Wei, what do you think about this matter? The current situation was too strange. Even if he thought of it, he couldn't move. This kind of discomfort was like punching cotton. This made Li Shimon feel a little depressed. Resist, no. Not resist, no. What could he do now? Now that he did not even know what the other party was doing, what could he do? All right. Zhang Sun Wuji, immediately send out all the people from the Ministry of Justice. They must investigate the situation in Chong and by tomorrow morning. I want to see if the recent abnormalities in Chong and are really caused by the Guanlong group suppression. Yu Qigong, immediately have your personal guards return to the barracks with my rewards. On the way back, make sure to check them carefully. This official obeys. The two of them hurriedly left. Li Chengqian was still standing there. Father, I think that the right way to solve this crisis is to go to the Longxi military camp immediately. Moreover, Brother Zhang Feng also said that only that place is the key to resolving this crisis. No. Li Shimon waved his sleeve. Cheng Yaojin. Yes, Your Majesty. I remember that the various regions have been recruiting more than a month ago, right? Chang Yaojin bowed and said, Your Majesty, there are only about 30,000 new recruits in the vicinity of Chang'an City this year. They are currently undergoing urgent training in the military camp outside Chang'an City. Immediately take these tens of thousands of people to Longxi with my orders and create a war for me. When Chang Yaojin heard this, how could he not know what the emperor meant? His eyes flashed and he excitedly clasped his fist. That's great. I haven't fought for a long time. Li Shimon's face darkened. Use your brains before you go to war. Think about how to get the locust eggs out of Long Yu. Chang Yaojin slapped his head and said excitedly, I know. After that, everyone left. Only Li Chengqian was still standing there, stiffening his neck. Li Shimon frowned and scolded. Don't go for now. Learn more from Zhang Feng during this period of time. Don't get so worked up over such a small matter. What's wrong with you? Li Chengqian pursed his lips and suppressed the urge to go to the military camp. Yes, I'm stupid. Chapter 244. Cheng Chumo was very excited. He couldn't remember the poem, but on the way back, he used 10 jars of wine and asked Du Go to write it for him. At this time, it was placed on Chang Yaojin's desk. Looking at the 2 words on the table, Cheng Chumo was so excited that his body was still trembling. His excitement caused the entire Chang residence to sink into a tense atmosphere. Now that Chang Yaojin was hurriedly called into the palace by the emperor, they didn't know what would happen. But now, Cheng Chumo had come up with such a plan. At this time, even the concubine who came to serve him was scared by his eyes and quickly went to find Chuisher. When Chuisher saw Cheng Chumo's appearance, she was shocked. My son, are you suffering from hysteria? When Cheng Chumo heard this, he quickly went forward and supported his mother. Mother, I have decided to go to the army camp like father. Nonsense. Chuisher was shocked. She quickly covered Cheng Chumo's mouth. This matter can't be said outside. Don't mention it again. Mother. Now, even the crown prince is begging the emperor to go to the battlefield. How can I lose the prestige of our Cheng family? I have also decided that you must go to the army camp. No. Before your father hears this, you should just give up on this idea. Otherwise, with your father's temper, you will have to lie in bed for half a year. Chuisher rejected Cheng Chumo. His family was a duke. So many people were watching them. This was the case for a family of generals. A family can't have two generals. They all knew about Chang Yaojin's talent. Since young, he was very interested in military books and all kinds of military affairs. If Chang Yaojin wasn't a general or a duke, then he could fight for his future. But if he dared to go to the army camp now, it would bring disaster to the Cheng family. How could Cui Shi dare to let such a thing happen? Chimo, I know you and I understand you, but this matter is too complicated. I know that you have been wrong these years, but you didn't come back last night, and now you are shouting about going to the battlefield. Are you hysterical? Or are you provoked? If you are bullied, say it. I will help you. My Cheng family's servants are all veterans who accompanied your father when he retired. Just say the word and this old lady will personally help you get back at them. When Cheng Chimo heard this, he was shocked. If this old lady were to find out about Brother Zhang Feng, wouldn't Brother Zhang Feng be doomed? He was a weak person who couldn't even withstand a slap. Thinking of this, Cheng Chimo quickly pulled Madame Chui's hand and said, Mother! Mother, look at this. As he spoke, Cheng Chimo solemnly opened one of the paintings. Cui Shi used to be the daughter of a big family, so she had dabbled in calligraphy and paintings, especially those made by famous masters. These years, if it wasn't for her, this house would have become Cheng Yaojin's training ground. Those antique calligraphy and paintings must be used as fuel for the fire. At this moment, Miss Cui was completely stunned when she saw this piece of calligraphy. Drunk, looking at the sword under the lamp, dreaming of blowing the horn at the camp. Chimo, where did you get this poem? Cui Shi's face became unusually dignified for the first time. She couldn't help but think of the two paintings in Chang Yaojin's study room. Although the handwriting looked different, it was definitely written by the same person. Cheng Chimo saw that his mother was deflated, so he couldn't help but straighten his back. This is my brother Zhang Feng's calligraphy. How is it, mother, with the artistic conception in this painting? Do you think that I should go to the battlefield? That's where I should go. What kind of poem can make you two have such expressions? At this moment, Chang Yaojin's loud voice sounded from outside the door. Cheng Chimo was excited. He raised the painting and read it to Cheng Yaojin. Drunk, looking at the sword under the lamp, dreaming of blowing the horn at the camp, 800 miles under the command of his subordinates, 50 bowstrings sound beyond the Great Wall, the autumn soldiers on the battlefield. The horse moves quickly, the bow is like thunder, the string is frightening. Accomplishing the affairs of the world, winning fame in life and behind. Pitiful for nothing. Father, how is this poem? Cheng Yaojin glanced at Cheng Chimo indifferently. This was made by Zhang Feng? That's right. Father, I went to the tavern with Cheng Qian and the others yesterday. We were all bowed down to Brother Zhang Feng's talent, so perhaps Cheng Qian, Zhang Sun Chong, and the others are thinking of a way to go to the military camp right now. Cheng Yaojin heard this and stroked his beard. No one could see any change in his expression. His Majesty knows about this. His Majesty's intention is for all of you to stay obediently for Lao Tzu and learn more useful things from Zhang Feng. The Crown Prince was blocked. But you? Do you think you're worthy of going to the battlefield? You haven't embarrassed Lao Tzu enough. Get out of here. Take advantage of the fact that Lao Tzu hasn't gotten angry yet. The excitement in Cheng Chimo's eyes slowly disappeared. However, when he heard that the Crown Prince couldn't go, and when he heard his father's words, he hurriedly ran away. When Cheng Chimo ran away, Cheng Yaojin's expression immediately became excited. Madam, hurry. Hurry and read the words for me again. Old man is so excited that he can't stand up. Chapter 245. In a tea house next to the Jinshui Bridge in Chang'an City. Although it was noon and the place was usually crowded with customers, it was quiet at the moment. Burly men surrounded the tea house so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. If anyone dared to come close, they would invite them to take a cold bath in the Jinshui River for free. On the second floor of the tea house, a few spoiled brats sat dejectedly at the tea table and sighed. Say something, Cheng Qian. If you can't think of a way, our chance to bring glory to our ancestors is gone. That's right. My legs were almost broken by my father. If Tai Nyo had come in time, my father would probably have broken my leg by now. Wei Shuyu was depressed to the extreme. He even politely read the two poems to his father. When he saw his father writing, He said what he wanted to say the most. However, what welcomed him was the inkstone that his father loved so much. Thinking about it now, Wei Shuyu's legs were shaking. If he didn't want to go, so be it. Did he have to be so angry and chase him all over the courtyard? Sigh. Did you see Zhang's son Chong? His house is so close to here. Why hasn't he come yet? Du Go asked doubtfully. Du Go had been covering his face the whole time. Now that he turned around, everyone finally understood why he was covering his face. This grandson had also been beaten up. As for who beat him up, don't even think about it. Other than Du Ruhui, who else could it be? Li Changqian waved his hand and said, "We're not waiting anymore. Even if Chong Zi isn't dead, he'll lose a layer of skin. He won't be coming today. Let me tell my father's intentions first." When everyone heard that, they hurriedly held their breaths. I've already told my father about our situation. My father's intention is that we are not allowed to go to the battlefield. I think this matter has something to do with Guanlong. If they know that the Crown Prince personally went to the barracks, it might anger the Guanlong group. My father's intention is to let us continue to stay in Chang'an and learn from Zhang Feng. When everyone heard that, they couldn't help but sigh. Since the emperor had said so, they really didn't have any chance at all. If the emperor opened his mouth and allowed Li Changqian to go to Long Yu, then they could use the identity of the Crown Prince's bodyguards to mix and mingle in the military camp. If they could get a little bit of military merit at the border, that would be even better. But now, even the emperor was terrified. And from the looks of it, this matter seems to be even more serious. Just like what Brother Zhang Feng said, it seems that the emperor is really not prepared for this matter at all. What should we do? Cheng Qian, should we intervene in this matter? If we take action, I believe that everything in Chang'an City will be revealed sooner. In the end, Cheng Chimo couldn't stay idle. Everything was caused by this matter. If this matter was resolved, did it mean that they could go to the border battlefield? Cheng Chimo's blood was boiling as he thought about the possibility of war with Tubo, the Turkic Khaganate, and the distant India in the future. No. Li Changqian shook his head. We don't know how Imperial Father will deal with this matter. If we investigate on our own, we'll probably hinder Imperial Father's plans. So, then we're just going to watch. Chen Chimo was anxious. No. Let's just pretend that this matter didn't happen. Let's do as Imperial Father said and go to Zhang Feng's little tavern first to learn his mysterious ability. If we learn it, then we'll benefit greatly for the rest of our lives. I agree with Cheng Qian. This time, Du Go didn't nag, but he agreed with Li Chengqian's decision. At this moment, there was a flurry of footsteps. Zhang Sun, with a bloody nose and a swollen face, was carried over. Originally, Zhang Sun was still a little embarrassed, but when he saw the palm print on Du Go's face and the bruise on Wei Shuyu's nose, he instantly understood what had happened. Damn, brothers, why are you all fine? I was beaten up badly by my old man. Hearing this, Du Go pointed at Wei Shuyu. He was almost beaten to death by his father. If not for Cheng Chimo, his legs would probably be broken by now. But to be honest, Cheng Chimo, why are you fine? Du Go quickly reacted and asked. Cheng Chimo puffed up his chest. My father is wise and powerful, how could he? Scram! Your father is wise and powerful? Wei Shuyu exploded. She and Zhang Sun roared at the two of them in disdain. At this moment Du Go said mysteriously, I remember now, it's the poem I wrote for you about Brother Zhang Feng. Stop talking. Brother, don't talk anymore. Cheng Chimo was anxious. Only then did everyone come to a realization. If I knew earlier, why didn't I prepare in advance? This was really a case of being too smart for your own good. If the silly Cheng Chimo could think of this, how could they not? No, for the sake of their future happiness, they had to ask Brother Zhang Feng for 180 fortune characters. This thing was a life-saving talisman. Let's go. Brothers, let's go find Brother Zhang Feng. Didn't our father say to go find him to play? Go, go, go. What are we waiting for? Under Zhang Xuan's urging, everyone could not help but slap their heads and hurriedly get up and leave. Chapter 246. Zhang Feng was depressed. He was extremely depressed. Staring at the big pile of tiger meat on the salted water pot, he felt a headache coming on. He wanted to give it away, but no one dared to take it. Although the meat was good, obviously, as a slave, no one deserved to eat it. Just one sentence. No one deserved it. That gave Zhang Feng a headache. This group of idiots, they were really the bullies of Chang'an City. They had already thought of this point. If it weren't for the fact that he had sworn to give the tiger's innards and penis to the old Xiaotsai, Zhuzi monkey, and old he, the army of flies would have made Zhang Feng have the urge to move out of his house. He had said that when he left, each of them would take a piece. Well, they all ran away. Zhang Feng fiddled with the 4 tiger claws and went to the medicine store to buy some herbs to make a big jar of tiger bone wine. But what should he do with the rest of the meat? The meat was very astringent and dry. If he made it into jerky, it would be like chewing tree roots. But if he didn't deal with it, he couldn't just let the meat rot, right? Zhang Feng had a headache. He lowered his head and put the firewood under the pot, letting the boiling salt water in the pot smoke the tiger meat. And at that moment, a few small heads carefully poked in through the curtain of the backyard. It was Guzzi and the others. They were looking at the meat on the pot and swallowing their saliva. Guzzi! What are you doing? At that moment, the old scholar's angry voice sounded behind them. They were so scared that they wanted to run away. At that moment, Zhang Feng also heard the voice. He hurriedly turned his head and his eyes lit up. Guzzi! Come here. Do you want to eat tiger meat? Just one sentence. Guzzi and the others were rooted to the ground. The old scholar glared at Zhang Feng, exasperated at his failure to live up to his expectations. It seems that you really want to spoil them. Zhang Feng chuckled. Isn't it because the meat will spoil if they don't eat it? Come. Old elementary scholar. You came just in time. I just made a big pot of tiger bone soup and was thinking of sending it over to you. Since you're here, let's have a drink or two. The old elementary scholar sighed and waved his hand. He fished out a bag of snacks from within his robes. He had originally intended to give it to Zhang Feng as thanks for his tiger penis, but now he had given it to these children. Seeing the children timidly snatch the packets of snacks from the old scholar's hands and play around in the small courtyard, the old scholar's eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of kindness as he looked at the children. He had no children. He didn't even have any relatives. He had lived his entire life in fear, not daring to do anything. The only reason he dared to walk out of the house he had left and onto the streets was because of his courage. On one hand, it was because he was poor and needed to eat. More importantly, he wanted to see this group of children. These children represented vitality. He always felt that a person's house was no different from a grave. Old Xiaotsai, what's wrong? Did he miss her? Sometimes I think that since you're so talented and knowledgeable, why don't you teach these children how to read? If that's the case, don't say it again. Before Zhang Feng could finish, the old scholar had already interrupted him. Are you trying to send this old man and this group of children to their deaths? If I really did that, the Imperial College would be the first to come after me. Do you think that knowledge is something that anyone can do? Can anyone teach others? Zhang Feng pursed his lips. Then tell me, among these people, some of them can read a little. Didn't they become apprentices in the neighborhood? Don't tell me you want your stomach full of knowledge to be buried just like that? The old scholar shook his head bitterly. Fengzi, pour me a bowl of wine. Zhang Feng knew the old scholar's current situation. He got up and scooped out a big bowl of bone soup from the pot. He ordered the lackey and the others to wash their hands and then filled the bowl himself. Then, he cut a big piece of cooked tiger meat from the steaming pot, seasoned it, and put it on the small table. After that, he took a jar of 35% low-alcohol wine and poured a bowl for old Xiaotsai. The meat was very fresh and salty. The old scholar ate a piece, curled his lips and drank the wine. Fengzi, you know my identity. Do you think that with my identity, the emperor and the laws of the Tang dynasty will allow me to teach and take in disciples? What's the difference between this and rebellion? Well, Zhang Feng fell silent. He had been thinking about finding an opportunity to tell old Xiaotsai to open a private school. On the one hand, it could let the lackey and the children of the slaves gain more knowledge. On the other hand, it could also let old Xiaotsai not be so lonely. It was a kind of suffering where one had a lot of skills but no place to show them. He understood. To put it bluntly, he and the old scholar were the same kind of people. However, he still forgot the laws of this era. Zhang Feng sighed deeply. Just you wait, old scholar. One day, I will let you stand in front of the private school with your head held high, and let these kids call you teacher with respect. How can you leave me out of this matter? Yes, brother Zhang Feng. And us. How about we teach these children too? Chapter 247. Along with the voice. Gozi and Juzi stopped making noise and stood timidly in the corner. They looked at the people who were dressed so extravagantly in fear. They knew these people. Their parents had warned them not to offend these people. These were the bullies of Chang'an City. They even dared to kill the tiger of the emperor's imperial plantation. They should never offend such people. They had to run as far as they could. At this time, Zhang Feng also saw the people who had left and returned. The old scholar sighed, clasped his hands and walked away unsteadily. When he left, he took Zhang Feng's jar of wine and the big bowl of meat soup with him. Zhang Feng didn't care. These were for the old scholar. You guys, why did you come back? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. I thought you had gone to Long Yu. Zhang Feng waved his hand and took out 2 tiger hind legs from the pot. He put them on a bamboo rake and handed them to Guzi to share. Then he looked speechlessly at Cheng Chumo and the others who were holding a jar of wine. Isn't it because our father doesn't want us to go? We are tired of Chang'an City. You are the best. So, haha, get out of here. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. Are you addicted to eating for free? Of course not. What do you want us to do? We promise you we will do a good job. Cheng Chumo said directly. Zhang Feng's eyes were wide open. Do these guys mean they are going to stay here? I can't even drive them away. Zhang Feng didn't believe it and said, Then you go chop firewood for me. I want you to fill up the yard by tonight. Cheng Chumo looked at Zhang Feng strangely and asked, Are you sure? Yes. Okay. Deal. Cheng Chumo casually agreed, took a sip of wine, and went out with the wine jug in his arms. Zhang Feng's eyes were wide open. Li Chengqian smiled faintly and said, Brother Zhang Feng, don't struggle. We came this time because we were chased out by our father and have nowhere to go. Moreover, we were also attracted by your miraculous cooking and drinking skills. So, don't waste your time. Just tell me, what else do you want to do? I guarantee that all of them will satisfy you as soon as possible. Zhang Feng was completely dumbfounded. What the hell? Okay. You don't leave. You do. Go and fetch water for me, from the ancient well outside the city. Look, all 10 vats in this courtyard are filled to the brim. Before it's too dark. Idiot Wei. Wei Shuyu's face darkened when she heard that. My name is Wei Yu. Bathroom. Damn this name. Zhang Feng was stunned. He was almost led astray by Wei Shuyu. They went to the front hall. Clean up the front hall for me. Don't leave a speck of dust. And you? Zhang Feng pointed at Li Chengqian. He thought for a while. There was really nothing to do now. But when he saw the meat on the pot, he smiled. Before the sky turns dark, steam the meat for me. Then cut it into 2 long strips. Okay. Li Chengqian smiled, cupped his hands, and went to the backyard. Zhang Feng was a little confused. Why wasn't this according to the plot? Damn it. Is there a problem somewhere? Zhang Feng couldn't figure it out, but looking at the setting sun, he took out 2 buckets, scooped the broth from the pot into the buckets, and carried them out of the door. He wanted to distribute the broth and bone broth to the neighbors before the sky turned dark. This was a good thing. He couldn't finish it all by himself. It was better to share it with the neighbors and let them have a taste. Tiger bone broth was a very rare thing even in the Tang dynasty. Today, thanks to the Empress, he would let everyone have a taste of this thing. A ladle of soup was delivered for more than 2 hours. Then, it was filled to the brim with treasures that each family was reluctant to eat. She brought it back for him. But when he came back, he was stunned. In the tavern's hall, all the tables and chairs were replaced with mahogany furniture. Even the counter was replaced with the most popular thing with a baffle that could open and close. This thing even came with a secret drawer. Zhang Feng wanted to buy it, but it cost 300 strings of string of coins. Zhang Feng touched the silver ingot in his arms and decided not to buy it. But now, this thing was placed neatly in the hall with the priceless mahogany tables and chairs. How could Zhang Feng not feel dizzy? What's going on? Did I come to the wrong door? Zhang Feng asked as he looked at Cheng Chumo and the others sitting in the hall, each holding a big bowl of tiger bone broth and gnawing on a big lump of meat. When Zhang Feng's voice fell, everyone burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Li Gone, you lost, didn't you? Come, bring the money. 10 taels per person. Don't go back on your word. Zhang Feng was speechless. On the other hand, there was not a single speck of dust on the floor and the plaque above the tavern counter that said, "Honest to all." He didn't know how Wei Shuyu did it. But looking at the money bags in their hands, Zhang Feng seemed to understand something. This group of bastards had used money to settle all the difficulties he had created for him. Chapter 248. Without looking at the backyard, Zhang Feng knew that if Chen Tiniu couldn't even handle this matter properly, he wouldn't be sitting here so comfortably. Zhang Feng simply threw the bucket away. He sat at the table, grabbed a piece of pork rib, and started chewing. Brother, aren't you going to the backyard to take a look? Go where? Go and be abused. Do you think you're so great just because you're rich? Zhang Feng said sulkily. Everyone burst into laughter. Brother Zhang Feng, we've been sneaky in this matter, but you know, which one of us is made for work? So, you're a magnanimous person, so why don't you teach us your true abilities? Hey! Damn it! Do you think stealing knowledge is something to be proud of? Zhang Feng laughed when he heard that. It's not impossible to teach you. But there's a problem. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard Zhang Feng say that there was a chance. Tell us. Everyone said in unison. Zhang Feng thought for a moment, then pretended to be serious and said, The things I know are very complicated, but to you, they're all at the level of the Kuei treasure, such as the ability to control the entire situation. Li Gan, do you want it? Yes. Li Chengqian cupped his fists excitedly and was about to get up to bow to his master, but he was stopped by Zhang Feng with a wave of his hand. Then he said, Du Dabing, you want my knowledge, don't you? Especially the understanding of poetry, literature, Confucianism, and Taoism, right? Indeed. I really can't sleep and eat well because of this. I hope that Brother Zhang Feng can. Wait. Zhang Feng asked again. The three of you, needless to say, are definitely made for martial arts. I have a peerless martial arts manual here if you don't. This thing, if it's completed, although it won't make you invulnerable on the battlefield, just its ability alone will allow you to complete at least 100 kills in a short 3 years of practice. Passing through tens of thousands of troops and taking the enemy's head casually. You don't want such an ability. Yes. Mother Fastress Kerr. Stop wasting time. As long as you're willing to teach me, Lao Tzu will even give you his life. The eyes of Cheng Chumo and the others turned red. They clenched their fists so tightly that they made popping sounds. However, at this moment, Zhang Feng smiled slyly. Everyone was so angry that they wanted to beat him up. Zhang Feng placed his hands behind his back and slowly paced around the hall. I'll teach you. That's impossible. Go back first, pick an auspicious day, bring gifts, and come to me. Otherwise, I won't teach you. Oh, by the way, let me mention this. Zhang Feng said as he set off another bomb. Wei Yu is agile, suitable for long-distance raids and assassinations. Tainyo is suitable for tanks, that is, heavy infantry or cavalry. As for Buggy, I have calculated that you are suitable for light cavalry, the kind that can travel thousands of miles alone. What do you think? Yes. F***ck, Brother Zhang Feng, you're a god. You can even calculate that? Come. Brother Zhang Feng, take a look at me. What path is suitable for me? Du Go was so anxious that his eyes turned red. They had never told Zhang Feng about these things, and Cheng Chumo was a reckless man. Thinking about it carefully, this heavy armor was indeed suitable for him to charge around recklessly. Zhang Sun Chong was also the same. Riding alone for thousands of miles, his idol was Zhao Zilong, and he was walking on his own path. As for Wei Shuyu, everyone really didn't know what path he was suitable for. But now that they heard it, it seemed to be the case. Du Go and Li Chengqian couldn't sit still anymore. Zhang Feng pretended to be sleepy and rubbed his shoulders as if his whole body was uncomfortable. The stubborn people were so anxious that they hurriedly invited him to sit on a stool. Then they massaged his arms and legs. After a while, Zhang Feng said, Big pie, if you want to do business, then start with mathematics. I have a field that you have never touched before. If you can learn this, even if you have to manage all the merchants in the world, you will be able to do it with ease. In fact, don't we have a cooperative now? As long as you learn quickly, when the emperor is happy, it won't be a problem to make you the Minister of Works. Minister of Works? Minister of Works before the age of 30? Was it possible? Others might think it was impossible, but for Zhang Feng, based on the ability he had shown before, everyone believed that he could definitely train Du Go. And now, it was Li Chengqian's turn. Li Chengqian couldn't help but worry. He didn't know how Zhang Feng would arrange for him, but he was also looking forward to it. To others, he might only talk about one aspect, but what about him? Zhang Feng said that he was suitable for governing. Could it be that he really wants to teach me the secret of controlling the entire situation? Li Chengqian's heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Finally, he understood why his father had sent him to learn more from Zhang Feng. This, just like the plan for Tubo and other countries. Who would have thought of this plan? Who would dare to think this way? And the cooperative now. Who would dare to do this? At this moment, Du Go, Wei Shuyu, and the rest couldn't help but stand up. Their eyes were fixed on Zhang Feng, who was really narrowing his eyes. They wanted to see what he would teach Li Chengqian. But after waiting for a while, Zhang Feng said, "As for you, the path I am going to teach you is very difficult. Do you want to learn it?" Learn. Chapter 249. How could Li Chengqian not learn it? Everyone wanted to learn that ability, right? Moreover, it was rumored to be Mr. Kongming's teacher. Although he knew that Zhang Feng was bragging, it would be crucial for the future of the Tang dynasty if he could learn how to strategize for the neighboring countries. It would even be impossible to expand the territory of the Tang dynasty by more than half. How could Li Chengqian not want to learn it? At that moment, Du Go, Zhang Sun, and the others were also shocked. They wanted that kind of ability as well. However, they also knew that they were not worthy of it. They were not worthy of learning it. However, although they were not worthy of learning it, they could at least listen to it, right? Cheng Chumo rubbed his hands and said with a smile, "Brother Zhang Feng, can you tell us first, what exactly did you teach Li Gan? Let us brothers broaden our horizons." "That's right, Brother Zhang Feng. Why don't you tell us about it? Although we can't learn it, we can at least learn a little." "Brother Zhang Feng, you..." Li Chengqian also stood up excitedly and prepared to bow to him. Zhang Feng waved his hand. "Hey, what are you doing? I haven't accepted you as my disciple yet. Put away your tricks. It's not easy to learn my ability. You have to think carefully." Zhang Feng narrowed his eyes and enjoyed the treatment. He was indeed bragging, but he really had the ability to train these people to be a level better than the current people. That was a must. After all, he had experienced military training in university for a few years. Coupled with his own combination of some things from the Tang dynasty, he would tire this group of fools to death. They had nowhere to expend their energy, right? "Then I'll do it for you." As for dating, that was easy. The elementary school physics and arithmetic problems were enough for him to study for a lifetime. As for Li Gan, that was a little more difficult. But who was he? He was Zhang Feng. How could that be difficult for him? All right. Since you're so eager, I'll tell you something first. Do you know about the 9 transformations, 8 trigrams? Li Chengqian frowned and thought for a moment. Yes, I know. I've heard that the crown prince is following Yuan Tiangang, the #1 genius of the Tang dynasty. He's a master of martial arts. There was really such a person as Yuan Tiangang. Zhang Feng thought for a moment and said, "That's right. Yuan Tiangang is indeed quite capable. However, he knows at least the Book of Changes. As for the mysterious Book of Changes, go and ask him if he knows anything about it." Strange scriptures? Li Chengqian was shocked. For so many years, he had been learning from Yuan Tiangang, but he had never heard of any extraordinary scriptures. Could it be that everything Zhang Feng said was because of the mystic scripture? This ancient book was rumored to be a priceless treasure. Whoever could obtain it would obtain the world. In the past, the first emperor was able to unify the 6 nations and accomplish an unprecedented feat because he had obtained the mysterious scripture. He even called himself the emperor. Although this secret wasn't in the history books, there were many records of it in the royal family's secrets. At this moment, Zhang Feng actually said that it was an extraordinary book. Could it be? He had really mastered the extraordinary book? Li Chengqian was shocked. Du Go was shocked. Cheng Chumo scratched his head with a puzzled expression. He exchanged glances with Zhang Sun and Wei Shuyu. Their eyes were full of confusion. Excuse me. What is this extraordinary scripture? Cheng Chumo finally looked at Zhang Feng and asked. Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. Only ghosts would know what an extraordinary scripture was. He was just bragging according to the novels he had read in his previous life. As for the existence of an extraordinary scripture, he disdained it. If such a thing really existed in the world, would Wuxia have been reduced to such a state thousands of years later? Zhang Feng yawned and waved his hand. All right, it's getting late. Go and think about it carefully. If you've made up your mind, choose an auspicious day and come back with your gifts. Seeing Zhang Feng chasing them away, they weren't angry. Even Li Chengqian bowed even more respectfully than before. He bowed with sincerity and said, Then we won't disturb Brother Zhang Feng anymore. We'll come again another day. However, I have a presumptuous request. Brother Zhang Feng, it's better to keep this extraordinary scripture a secret. If it gets out, even the current emperor can't protect you. What did he mean? Zhang Feng was confused. Hey, don't go. Tell me clearly before you go. Is there really such a thing? Zhang Feng sat up, but Li Chengqian and the others had already disappeared into the night. It's over. F***ck. Zhang Feng wished he could give himself a few tight slaps on the face. This stupid mouth. F***ck. If you don't have king say anything, why did you talk about an extraordinary scripture in the Tang dynasty when superstition was at its peak and in front of that old faker Yuan Tiangang? F***ck. It's over. This time I'm really in trouble. In the history books, he just remembered how many absurd things Yuan Tiangang had done in order to get the extraordinary scripture. F***ck. Could it be that this extraordinary scripture really existed? It's over. Where would Lao Tzu get the extraordinary scripture for you? Zhang Feng wanted to cry at this time. This was really casually bragging. Now he couldn't take it back even if he wanted to. He didn't know how many lies he would have to make up for this thing in the end. Alas! Lao Tzu's mouth. Despicable. Chapter 250. Li Chengqian excitedly rushed back to the Eastern Palace. He didn't even have time to change his clothes before he rushed to Taiji Palace. As soon as he entered, he saw Li Shimin sitting in front of the desk with one hand on his forehead, thinking about something. Li Chengqian quietly dismissed all the palace maids and eunuchs, then personally dismissed all the guards outside the door. Only then did he cautiously walk in front of Li Shimin. Li Shimin was a little confused. But after seeing Li Chengqian's gesture of silence, he patiently waited to see what Li Chengqian wanted to do. He saw Li Chengqian write the words, extraordinary scripture, on the paper. Li Shimin's eyes involuntarily narrowed. Come with me. Li Shimin's body exploded with an intimidating aura. He stood up and said in a low voice. Then, as if he was still worried, he ordered, Little Gizi, your servant is here. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter the imperial study. Violators will be beheaded. I have something to discuss with the crown prince. As you command. After giving his orders, Li Shimin lightly knocked twice on a luminous pearl inlaid on the back of the dragon throne. Then, with a twist, the luminous pearl was knocked out. Then, at this moment, a dark bottomless hole appeared on the floor below the dragon throne. Li Shimin took out 2 oil lamps from the bookshelf, handed one to Li Chengqian, and held the other for himself. Then, he cautiously walked down the vertical secret passage. The secret passage wasn't wide and could only accommodate one person going down at the same time. When the two of them had walked about 15 steps, Li Shimin lit an oil lamp on the wall. Then, he pressed a protrusion on the side of the lamp, and the secret passage above them was covered again. So far, Li Shimin had not said a single word, and Li Chengqian had not said a single word. Li Chengqian was very shocked, but after thinking about it, he felt relieved. Who didn't have some secrets? What more his father? The two of them walked along the ice-cold steps. After about the time it took to brew a cup of tea, They arrived at a huge underground palace. The interior of the underground palace was luxuriously decorated, but there wasn't even a speck of dust on it. Clearly, Li Shimin often came to this underground palace. Furthermore, this underground palace was filled with bookshelves. Looking carefully, Li Chengqian was shocked. The books on it were all forbidden books of the Tang dynasty. There were even classical stories from the previous dynasty, and so on. For example, there were many Taoist classics and authentic manuscripts of Confucius. Regarding this, Li Chengqian did not find it strange. On the contrary, if Imperial Father did not have this place, then it would really be strange. Chengqian, tell me in detail. What exactly is this extraordinary scripture? Li Shimin asked as he sat on a soft couch. He waved his hand, indicating for Li Chengqian to sit down as well. Only then did Li Chengqian say, Imperial Father, today Zhang Feng agreed to take us as disciples. He also said that he can make Chang Chumo into a heavy armored cavalry that can be defeated by anyone. He can also make Zhang Sun into a warrior who can ride alone for 1,000 miles and take the head of a general in the midst of 1,000,000 soldiers. He can also make Wei Shuyu practice that supreme assassination technique that can come and go without a trace. Dugo can even make him master the art of arithmetic that can control the wealth of the world. As for me, Li Chengqian paused, then said with a burning gaze. He said that he will make me master the extraordinary scripture that even Mr. Yuan Tiangang did not master. I found out from his words that he was able to control the layout of the countries around the Tang dynasty because of the extraordinary scripture. That's why I hurriedly returned. On one hand, Brother Zhang Feng wanted us to prepare the ceremony for becoming his disciple. On the other hand, I wanted to talk to Imperial Father about this matter. After all, whether it's us, the 5 clans and 7 hopes, or even outsiders, we are all looking for the extraordinary scripture. Was there really an extraordinary scripture? Li Shimin had always been disdainful of these things. But now, he couldn't help but feel a little confused. He never believed that there were demons, ghosts, and gods in the world. But now, he learned about the extraordinary scripture. Moreover, this was a secret that only the royal family knew. How did Zhang Feng know about it? Was he really an old monster who had cultivated for 5,000 years? But when he thought about it, he felt that it was impossible. If he really had such great ability, how could he not know his identity? But how could he explain the current situation? Li Shimin couldn't figure it out, but he definitely didn't believe that Zhang Feng was an old monster who had lived for 5,000 years. As for this extraordinary scripture, did it really exist in ancient legends? Li Shimin didn't believe it. But Zhang Feng's ability, from the art of making salt to the strange cooking and brewing methods, and what he said about some of the things that were being implemented in the Tang dynasty, were all things that had never been done before and would never be done in the future. How could these be explained? Li Shimin couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure it out either. Sigh. Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He waved his hand and motioned to Li Chengqian. Don't mention this to anyone. Have you warned Cheng Chumo and the others about the consequences if they don't keep their mouths shut? Li Shimin's eyes flashed with killing intent. This killing intent made Li Chengqian feel a deep sense of fear. I've already warned them about this matter. I think they won't dare to be careless in this matter. Li Shimin heard that and breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. We also don't want to commit more killings, but if this matter were to spread, the Great Tang would definitely face a calamity of destruction. Remember, it's better to kill 1,000 by mistake than to let this matter spread. Li Chengqian hurriedly got up. I understand. You may leave. Remember, learn well from Brother Zhang Feng. Every night, I want you to learn everything you hear, think, and learn that day. Yes, Your Majesty. Chapter 251. Cheng Mansion. The lights had already illuminated the huge Cheng Mansion. As for Chang Yaojin, he was still sitting in the hall. His calloused hands were twirling the words. There were even tears in Chang Yaojin's eyes, which were full of vicissitudes of life. He had been in this position for the whole day. Ever since he saw this calligraphy, he had been staring at it in a daze. He was very grateful that the emperor had once ordered him to learn how to read. If he couldn't learn in half a year, he would have to retire and return to his hometown. Although this was the emperor's angry words at that time. But now that she thought about it, She remembered how crazy the emperor was when he saw her painting that didn't resemble her at all. In half a year, even if he had worked hard to learn, although he couldn't write much, at least he could understand it. At this time, thinking about the emperor's painstaking efforts, Chang Yaojin was now flustered. If anyone dared to take out those things and show them in front of him, he would definitely beat that person up on the spot. Even if it was in the imperial court, he wouldn't hesitate. He thought that he wanted to get rid of the bad reputation of illiteracy. When he received the calligraphy of the Zhang Feng brothers, he was infinitely emotional, but he wouldn't lose his composure. But today, he was deeply touched by the calligraphy of the Zhang Feng brothers, written by Du Go. The scenes on the battlefield made Chang Yaojin feel infinitely sad. Most of the brothers who had laughed and cried with him were now buried in the cold soil. Many of them didn't even leave behind a name. But who could remember them? Other than in their dreams, who would remember that they had once sacrificed everything for the great Tang on the battlefield? Erniu, Gosheng, old Nyo, miss you. Are you doing well in that place? Sob, sob, sob. I actually forgot what your real names are. No. Just you wait, brother. I will go and beg the emperor. I will erect a monument for you. Let the future generations revere you and remember your glorious achievements. While speaking, Chang Yaojin wiped the tears from his face and hurriedly put on his armor to enter the palace. However, he was bumped into by Cheng Chumo, who was walking in. What are you doing? Cheng Yaojin was furious. He shouted angrily. Father, I have something to tell you. Cheng Chumo was startled by Cheng Yaojin's red eyes, and hurriedly said. If you have something to say, then say it. Lao Tzu is going to the palace to settle accounts with the emperor. Cheng Yaojin urged impatiently. When Cheng Chumo heard this, his head started spinning. Settle accounts with the emperor? What kind of account was this? Wait, father, I have something to tell you. Today, I went to the tavern again with the crown prince and the others. This time, I discovered a big problem. Hearing this, Cheng Yaojin was no longer anxious. He asked, what's the big problem? Cheng Chumo said mysteriously, today when I went to the tavern, guess what brother Zhang Feng said? Cheng Yaojin was so angry that he slapped Cheng Chumo's forehead. Cheng Chumo shrunk his neck and said calmly, today, brother Zhang Feng promised to teach us. Moreover, he plans to teach differently for each individual. For me, he plans to teach me the path of heavy cavalry, while Zhang Sunchong's path is to travel 1,000 miles on a single horse and take the head of the defending general with 10,000 troops. Do you know that bastard Wei Shuyu? Damn, brother Zhang Feng is going to teach him the way of assassination. Why didn't he teach me this? When Cheng Yaojin heard this, he was shocked. You, with that bull strength of yours, would you be able to be a light horse? I think brother Zhang Feng's arrangement is good. But, this guy still wants you to sign a contract with the army. Cheng Yaojin could not understand Zhang Feng. Why was he so determined to let these children join the army? What was the benefit? However, Cheng Yaojin believed that the crown prince had told the emperor about this, but the emperor did not object. It could be said that he acquiesced. So, how would the emperor arrange this? What about Du Go, the crown prince, and brother Zhang Feng? Cheng Yaojin waved his hand, and instantly, the retired soldiers quickly dispersed. He then closed the door and asked. Cheng Chumo was smart enough to quickly write down Du Go's arrangement. Cheng Yaojin was shocked. Was the crown prince planning to hand over all the money in the world to him? Cheng Yaojin knew how terrifying a master of mathematics was. This kind of complicated thing was the private collection of the 7 kings of the 5 families. It was also because of this that the 7 kings of the 5 families were able to stand for so many years. If the 7 kings of the 5 families knew about this, even if Du Go was hiding by the emperor's side, the 7 kings of the 5 families would spare no effort to assassinate him. He would rather die than live in dishonor for this kind of thing. Zhang Feng, why did you make such an arrangement? What do you want to do? Cheng Yaojin could not figure it out, but fortunately, he did not want to think about it. He knew that Du Ruhui was really troubled now. He asked hurriedly. What about the crown prince? Cheng Chumo took a deep breath. At this time, he did not dare to write with ink. He dipped his finger in the water in Cheng Yaojin's teacup, and then quickly wrote 2 words on the table. Then he quickly wiped it clean. Cheng Yaojin, on the other hand, was so shocked that his face suddenly changed. Quickly bring me the old man's armor. The old man wants to enter the palace. Chapter 252. Imperial Palace. In the study of Taiji Palace. It was already night time. However, Li Shimin seemed to know that Wei Zhang and the others would definitely come to the palace at night, so he was already seated on the dragon throne waiting for them. He had even informed them that if these people wanted to enter the imperial city, they were not allowed to obstruct the tribulation. He had already made up his mind. If these people did not come, he would not hesitate to use an iron-blooded method that he had not used in a long time to let these people know that this matter was very serious. Tonight was destined to be an eventful night. Just as Li Shimin was drinking his third cup of tea, Xiao Gizi hurried over to report. Reporting to your majesty, Duke Lu, Duke Xiao, Duke Zhang, and the others are outside requesting an audience. Summon them. Li Shimin finally let go of the last worry in his heart. He did not want to commit any more killings. Especially now. He did not trust many people in the imperial court, and these people were the ones he valued the most. He was very worried that these people would betray him. However, it seemed that he could now take in the Jianghu guards. With a wave of his hand, a person in the shadows hurriedly left. At this moment, a few people dressed in court attire and holding white jade tablets hurriedly entered the imperial study. Chang Yaojin even put on the armor that he had not worn for a long time. Furthermore, it was the armor that had accompanied Li Shimin for many years. A smile flashed across Li Shimin's lips when he saw this. He waved his hand to indicate that everyone did not need to be so reserved. We are very gratified that my beloved official could come tonight. Come. Don't be so courteous. This is not the political announcement hall. So relax a little. At this moment, everyone heaved a deep sigh of relief when they saw the smile on Li Shimin's lips. These people were no longer noobs. It could be said that they were a group of old foxes. After seeing Li Shimin's reaction, everyone complied with Li Shimin's wishes and sat down. We are very gratified tonight. Being able to see the few of you, this Zhan is really relieved. Previously, when I heard that child Chengqian talk about brother Zhang Feng, we were a bit worried. I also knew that you might come. That's why I've been worried ever since I received the news. What do you think we should do about this? Li Shimin smiled faintly. Everyone stood up again. At this time, although Li Shimin was expressing his loyalty, everyone was not stupid. The more it was like this, the more they had to be careful. Because, often at this time, their heads had already been lifted by the emperor. Emperor! We are slow-witted, but we also know that this matter is not something that we can decide. Therefore, when we learned of this matter, we immediately locked up our unfilial sons and rushed to the palace to seek an audience with your majesty. As he spoke, everyone knelt down. Please punish me, your majesty. Regardless of the consequences, if he admitted his guilt now, he could save his life. Sure enough, after Li Shimin heard this, the expression on his face finally relaxed. My beloved subjects, you may all rise. We have already said that this is not the imperial court. This is a place for us old fellows to chat, so there is no need to be reserved. Servants, come. Serve tea. As Li Shimin spoke, he stood up and waited for the palace maids to serve tea. He helped everyone up one by one and handed out cups of tea to everyone. At this time, he waved his hand to dismiss the palace maids and the imperial guards who were secretly guarding every corner of the imperial study. Then he said with a smile, we really don't know what to do about this matter. Official Cheng, tell me about Qimo, Chong'er, and the others. Should we go? Chang Yaojin's eyelids twitched imperceptibly. Your Majesty, I am slow-witted. I will listen to whatever you say. If that brat of mine makes your Majesty unhappy, I will go back now and bring him to you. Hey, how can you speak like that? When Li Shimin saw that Chang Yaojin did not accept his words and even said such words, he could only wave his hand to have him sit down. Then he looked at Wei Zhang. Prime Minister Wei, you speak. This matter is giving us a headache. Wei Zhang hesitated. Having two outstanding talents in the same family had already crossed the emperor's reverse scale. However, the emperor pitied Wei Shuyu and sent her to the imperial guards. On one hand, it was to give his family a little income, but more importantly, it was to keep an eye on Wei Shuyu. But now, Brother Zhang Feng had given everyone a difficult problem. Wei Zhang gritted his teeth, got up, and knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, this old subject is slow-witted and unknowingly allowed Shuyu to commit such a crime. This subject is willing to accept the punishment and retire to his hometown. This subject is also willing to retire to his hometown and clear his name. Zhang Sun Wuji and the others also hurriedly knelt and begged for mercy. Li Shimin shook his head. With his hands behind his back as if he could not see everyone, he said, Wuji, I remember that when we were about the same age as Chong'er and the others, we were already famous on the battlefield, right? I remember that at that time. Sigh. We are all old. Your Majesty is in the prime of his life. How can you be old? Forget it, forget it. Li Shimin shook his head and said, Everyone get up. This was a decision I made before. After indicating for everyone to get up, Li Shimin sat in the middle of the crowd and said, I think we should respect Brother Zhang Feng's choice on this matter. After all, if we were thick-skinned back then, maybe. But we are all old. It is time for us to contribute to the future of the Tang dynasty. Chapter 253. No one understood the meaning of the emperor's ambiguous words. But at this time, they could only play dumb. Sometimes people died from talking too much. They died from being smart. At this time, Li Shimin was also satisfied. After achieving his goal, Li Shimin could not help but let go of the last bit of fear in his heart. Since that is the case, then I have decided. Since Brother Zhang Feng is willing to teach all his skills to Xianxia and the others, then I will allow it. But, when the time comes, I will personally assess how much they have learned from Brother Zhang Feng. If they do not pass, then they will remain the same as they are now. If they have learned well, then I will reward them. But I have a request. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed and hurriedly expressed their thanks. Li Shimin said again, Every day, I must receive their learning progress. Then, Cheng Yaojin, you and the people of the military department will work together to secretly organize what Zhang Feng has taught for me. As for Du Go, Minister Feng, I will have to trouble you. As for Cheng Qian, I will personally organize it. But there is one thing. I do not wish to hear what Cheng Qian has learned outside. In the end, Li Shimin still expressed his worries. He believed that these people would understand. If they didn't, they wouldn't be here tonight. They all stood up and knelt on the ground again. We obey Your Majesty's imperial order. All right, get up. Since it's already so late, don't go back tonight. We haven't drunk together in a long time. How about it? Why don't we have the imperial chef make some mutton soup and pair it with Brother Zhang Feng's good wine? Without waiting for anyone to object, Li Shimin said with a chuckle, I know that those little rascals actually sneaked into my yellow forest to hunt a tiger and gave it to Brother Zhang Feng. I also know that the most precious tiger penis was given to an old scholar by that little rascal. Li Shimin seemed to be very angry. It was as if his heart ached. He shook his head and said, Forget it. Tomorrow, we'll go and eat tiger meat. That was good stuff. Let's go together then. What could they say? What did he dare to say? He could only nod his head. They had just walked on the edge of life and death. Right now, everyone's backs were drenched in sweat. How could he dare to say anything else? Now that the emperor was in the midst of comprehending, if anyone dared to speak at this time, they would definitely be done for. Not long after, Hunyang Mo was suddenly carried in by a few palace eunuchs. The spicy pepper, the numbing pepper, and the dogwood powder, which he stole from Zhang Feng, instantly filled the imperial study with a spicy sensation that made one unable to blink. Come, come, come. Li Shimin seemed to have an appetite. He rubbed his hands and beckoned for everyone to sit down. Then, he personally opened a jar of wine and served it to everyone. Then, he raised his glass and said, Everyone has worked hard during this period of time. I have long wanted to treat everyone to a drink, but unfortunately, I never had the time. Tonight, let's have a good drink. While speaking, Li Shimin raised his head and drank the wine in one gulp. After drinking a glass of wine, everyone's nerves gradually relaxed. Li Shimin asked slowly, By the way, Minister Feng, can you tell me what happened to the cooperative in Chang'an recently? Furthermore, I have a bad premonition. Feng Xianling hurriedly put down his glass and was about to stand up, but Li Shimin waved his hand and motioned him to sit down and talk. Your Majesty, I have noticed that the Chang and local government's treasury was less than 30 million taels of silver. But now, including the money lent out and the money deposited, the total amount is 10 million taels of gold. This is a considerable amount, so I think that the matter of Guanlong hasn't started yet. But I also found something wrong in the past 2 days. That is, the goods of all the merchants have been hoarding. No one has said that they want to go out of the city. A large number of goods of Zhanla in the treasury have all been sold out. Most of the merchants even borrowed money at the entrance of the government office and then turned around to buy goods. But there are also a large number of Huzi, Tubo and Turkic merchants who have come to buy goods. I sent someone to talk to General Yuqi. He didn't find any clues, but the people on the trade route are indeed much less than before. I am investigating this matter, and I believe that there will be definite news tomorrow. Li Shimin heard this. He nodded. As long as the money in the treasury didn't decrease, it meant that everything was normal. As for why these merchants didn't transport goods out and why they hoarded in Chang'an, Li Shimin didn't worry about it. There was no problem with the trade route. That meant that these merchants were deliberately hoarding goods. It was not up to him to care about it. After thinking about it, Li Shimin didn't think about it anymore. There was no problem with the money, and no bad things had happened to the merchants, which meant that this matter hadn't developed to a bad point for the time being. After all, there were merchants who had the habit of hoarding goods before. Now it was just that there were more goods. After Li Shimin understood this, he didn't think about it anymore. He waved his hand and said, "Okay. Let's not think too much. Maybe Brother Zhang Feng is drunk, or he wants us to be on guard against the Guanlong group. As long as we pay attention now, once this matter starts, even if the Guanlong group wants to cause trouble, it's over. Now, let's eat and finalize the matter of them worshipping Zhang Feng as their teacher." Okay. And at this moment, when the gong sounded, it was the time of the hour. In a dark room in Chang'an City, an oil lamp was slowly lit by someone. The next moment, a group of luxuriously dressed figures appeared in this room. One of them, a white-haired old man with a veil, glanced at the crowd and asked, "How is it?" Chapter 254. In the dying house of Xinghua Lane. Usually, this place was just an inconspicuous cloth dyeing shop. However, tonight, it was already midnight, but in the backyard of this cloth dyeing shop, a candle flame was so conspicuous in the night. And in this small house, it was actually crowded with people. Some of them were dressed in servant clothes, some were dressed in servant clothes, and some were even dressed in gorgeous clothes. There was an old man who was sitting at the highest point of the house, and a few people who were about 20 years old standing at the door. At this time, they were looking at the old man in the lead respectfully. The old man didn't seem to want to talk. He sat steadily at the head of the table, sipping tea from time to time. "Have you all found out about this matter? What do you think about this matter?" Everyone heard this. He hurriedly replied, "Your Excellency, we've already dealt with it cleanly. We've already greeted all the merchants who are related to us, and we've settled everything on the trade route. As long as we give the order, all the materials piled up in Chang, and will cause the entire city to fall into chaos. And these businessmen have promised that they will create public opinion at the critical moment." Okay. The old man waved his hand impatiently. "I just want to know if you've dealt with it. I only want the result." "Yes. I've also dealt with it here. We're just waiting for the Sir's order." After everyone gave their assurances, the old man put down the teacup and said with a smile, "Good. In that case, let's get started." This time, Li Shimin was still kept in the dark. This is worthy of praise. When I go back, I'll definitely report this to the higher-ups. I will also truthfully report your contributions to the higher-ups. Thank you very much, sir. After saying this, the old man turned an emerald ring in his hand and said coldly, "You want to go against my Guanlong group? Li Shimin, I'm afraid you've forgotten how the Sui dynasty fell. You've probably forgotten how your Li family climbed up, haven't you? Everyone, get ready tonight. Tomorrow, I only want to hear the news of chaos in Chang'an City." Yes. Night fell. It was a restless night. But the night would eventually pass. The night would eventually pass. When the sun shone on Chang'an City again, A strange atmosphere suddenly spread in Chang'an City. A rumor suddenly appeared on the streets of Xinghua Square in Chang'an. Have you heard? These merchants were going to suffer a huge loss this time. I heard that the big countries in the western regions have forbidden our merchants from entering. What? Then what about my goods? I've already put in all my savings. Who isn't? The batch of goods I'm importing from Zhenla is finished. Those are saltwater fish. If we don't deal with this quickly, then what should we do? What else can we do? Isn't this the real thing that the government wants us to buy? Now that they don't want it anymore, we have to go to the authorities. If they can lend us the money, it means that they can definitely handle this matter. Someone in the crowd roared. In an instant, all the merchants flocked to the temporary government office of the Ministry of Works, as if they had found their backbone. And this matter was still fermenting, as if there was a hand stirring the muddy water. Everyone rushed to the direction of the Chang'an City Treasury like crazy. There were even some people who were pulling their goods and shouting in the city. They were howling about how the officials were not giving them a good life, and what not. And at this time, urgent reports were also placed on Li Shimin's desk. Urgent document from Longyu Circuit. All the Guanlong Trading Company in Longyu Circuit issued a notice at the same time. From today onwards, all the trading routes will be suspended, and the 5 families and 7 major clans will jointly impose economic sanctions on Chang'an. Urgent report from Shannon Circuit. Li family of Longxi, one of the 5 families and 7 major clans, today suspends the sale of food to Chang'an. All the branches are banned from trading with Chang'an. Jiannan Circuit, Hebei Circuit, Hunan Circuit, Jiangnan Circuit. The urgent reports made Li Shimin's face completely gloomy. Guanlong Trading Company, are you in such a hurry to suppress me? Do you really think I'm not prepared for your suppression? Li Shimin was angry. If it weren't for Zhang Feng's guidance, he might not have realized the seriousness of this matter until now. But now he was prepared, so he was not in such a hurry to deal with it. With a wave of his hand, Li Shimin shouted, "What's the situation in Chang'an today?" Hearing this, a small yellow door outside the imperial study hurried in, knelt down and said, "Your Majesty, there are a lot of rumors in the room. The officials are dealing with the angry people. Now, all the people are at the gate of the Chang'an City Treasury. Lord Feng and Lord Zhang's son have sent people to deal with this matter in person." Good, good, good. A strong killing intent burst out of Li Shimin's eyes. He waved his hand and shouted, "Send my order." Wei Zhang, Chang Yaojin, and the others immediately enter the palace and send a message to the Chang'an City garrison. Immediately gather 50,000 soldiers and wait for orders. Yes. Chapter 255. The Chaos in Chang'an City. Zhang Feng faintly felt that something was wrong. The Guanlong group had finally made a move. But why had the emperor not made a move? Moreover, who knew what that bastard old Li was doing these days? There was no movement at all. Was he waiting for death? Zhang Feng looked at the people scurrying around on the street. He turned over and lay down on the recliner under the crooked tree. He did not want to take a nap like this. He had also heard about this. It was very clever. This opponent had some intelligence. First, he used the Guanlong group to put pressure on the merchants to stock up crazily. Then, at the right time, he cut off the trade routes. This was really a good move. Even in the modern world a few hundred years later, he would be considered a talent. This was awesome. Zhang Feng admired the person who came up with this plan. But was there a solution now? Zhang Feng was silent. This time, the Guanlong group had held back for so long. When they made a move, they would definitely make a big move. And it would be a big move that could strangle the emperor. Did that mean that the 7 major clans had made a move at this time? Zhang Feng smiled. In his previous life, he had developed a strong interest in this mysterious Wuxia aristocrat. He did not expect to meet this mysterious force at this time. The 7 major clans could control the rise and fall of a dynasty. This force. Could the emperor really win against them? Zhang Feng smiled. But he also fell asleep. Just as Zhang Feng fell asleep, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. In the imperial study. Zhang Sun Wuji and the others appeared in the imperial study, sweating profusely. Last night, They were still assuring him that there was absolutely nothing wrong, but they didn't expect to hear such a lousy thing when they woke up early in the morning. And from the report from the little yellow door, the emperor seemed to be very angry this time. At this time, the 5 of them lowered their heads and did not dare to say a word. Li Shimin was also anxious. He paced back and forth in the imperial study. I don't want to ask any more. I don't want to ask any more. The whole thing was my negligence. If I had asked Brother Zhang Feng earlier, things wouldn't have turned out this way. But now that things have happened, we have to think of a solution. We can't ask Brother Zhang Feng for help now that something has gone wrong. Even if you feel embarrassed, I feel embarrassed. Let's all talk. What should we do about this? Your Majesty, I, Old Cheng, feel that we should let the Imperial City Guards search from house to house. They will definitely. All right, shut up. Shut up. Li Shimin impatiently waved his hand and pointed at Zhang Sun Wuji. You're the Minister of Justice. How do you think we should solve this problem? Your humble servant is slow-witted. Right now, all the trade routes outside of Chang have been cut off. Even if we could reopen the trade routes, who would the merchants sell their goods to? The 5 clans and 7 watchful families control all the entrances to trade. At this time, no one would have thought that they would attack at the same time. I am stupid. I don't know what to do. Wei Zhang. Li Shimin's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. He shouted angrily, Du Ruhui Feng Xianling, the 2 of you carefully think of a solution for me. At this time, Wei Zhang said, Your Majesty, your humble servant thinks that the best way to solve this problem is to negotiate with the people of the Guanlong group. There's nothing that can't be discussed. Moreover, this matter is obviously aimed at this cooperative. If your Majesty is willing to compromise, this humble servant thinks that there will be room for negotiation. Will there be? Li Shimin laughed at himself. He knew how overbearing the Guanlong group was. He wanted to suppress the Guanlong group behind their back. No one was a fool. Everyone knew very well in their hearts. Moreover, it was obvious that he wanted to take control of the economy. This obviously affected their development. Unless he gave away the rights to this cooperative and she immediately abdicated, he really couldn't think of any other way to solve this problem perfectly. This matter was just an excuse for Guanlong to beat him at this time. Li Shimin knew very well in his heart. Alas! Li Shimin sighed deeply. This matter. You and the others go and comfort me first. As for the solution, Li Shimin fell silent again. Up until now, this matter had happened. Except for these people standing in front of him, who else came to report about this matter? A burst of sad anger leisurely burned in Li Shimin's chest. This is one of my subjects. This is the courtier of the Tang dynasty. Was this what those fellows who kept on talking about were doing now? I'm afraid that everyone is busy counting the family property now. Who can spare a thought for me at this time? Li Shimin couldn't help but tremble. He tried hard to make himself not think about this matter. Then he waved his hand and said, Forget it, forget it. Now put down everything for me. Send all the people to solve the chaos in Chang'an. As for the solution, I'll personally ask Brother Zhang Feng. Li Shimin looked up to the sky and sighed. He pointed to the window. No one could see clearly his anger. Li Shimin seemed to be talking to himself. This is the imperial court of the Tang dynasty. Haha. Although it is said that there are hundreds of courtiers. But at this time, how many people are really thinking for me? It's time to clean up. Chapter 256. As all the merchants in Chang'an City began to panic. Everyone in Chang'an City gradually felt a trace of pressure. At this time, in Chang'an City, even the glass products that were usually worth more than 10 taels of silver had their prices plummeted to the freezing point today. 5 taels of silver. Such a shocking thing not only did not make the people feel excited, but they also felt a trace of fear. In the Daxing market of Ndingfang, at this time, in the market full of goods, all the merchants personally went to the market. They shouted with red faces and thick necks. Come, 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 don't miss this. Top-grade silks are being sold at half price. Quality guarantee, a benefit that can wait 1,000 years for a moment. Dear villagers, I am a merchant from Dashi country. Because of some matters, All the silk products, all the silks, all the furs, all the tea leaves, and all the other goods are being sold at half price. Don't miss this opportunity. All the goods were originally priced at 1 tael of silver, but now they are sold for 100 copper coins. 100 copper coins. Dear villagers, come and have a look. And in this regard, all the people were stunned. What the F***CK? What's going on? Mother **Cur. Are these merchants in cahoots? Damn it. Are we buying or not? No. Wait a minute. I keep feeling that something is wrong. There were many onlookers, but there were only a few people who were willing to buy it. It could even be said that everyone clutched their money bags tightly, afraid that the money bags they had just bulged would be directly taken away by these unscrupulous businessmen for some reason. Somewhere. An old man who heard the news from a village outside Jianghu and city drove a carriage, frowning as if he was patrolling. With his hands behind his back, he slowly selected the silk products that he once did not dare to look at. Early in the morning, he heard that Jianghu city was in chaos. All the merchants were selling their goods at half price, and there were even some who directly came to sell and give away at half price. How could he let go of such a good thing? Looking at the people in the village, those unmarried girls or young men who were half-grown, every day, they did not have the money to buy clothes to cover their bodies. She couldn't even bear to buy linen clothes. Normally, only the rich could afford to wear these clothes, but now they were cheaper than linen clothes. The old patriarch brought the smart young men of the clan to Jianghu to try their luck. If that was the case, then what harm was there in buying some? The old patriarch paced back and forth in front of every silk stall and compared them with the linen clothing store. Then he picked up a piece of silk cloth and asked in front of a dejected fat man, "Shopkeeper, how much is this cloth?" The fatty was already in despair. The trade route outside was blocked. Moreover, it was someone that even the imperial family could not afford to offend. How could he not be worried? Half a day had passed, but he hadn't sold a single foot of cloth. It seemed as if he would lose everything he had invested in these materials. However, at this very moment, someone actually came to ask about it. All of a sudden, the fatty was energized. Looking at all the pairs of shrewd eyes staring at him, he rolled his eyes, patted his chest and roared, "Sir, you really have a good eye. You've seen this cloth too. It's top-grade silk. You're my first customer today. How about this? If you like it, you can give me a price. On top of the price you gave, I'll give you another piece of cloth. How about that?" This who merchant had a good eye. Zhang Feng stood in the crowd and couldn't help but nod. This kind of business was quite similar to the promotion model of the modern era. Although it seemed like he was making a loss, once this news spread, it would be strange if he lost money. As long as he could suppress the situation later, he wouldn't lose much from the 5 carts of silk cloth today. Just as Zhang Feng was pondering what the fatty was going to do, the old patriarch narrowed his eyes. The old man narrowed his eyes and tightly gripped the brown silk cloth in his hand. He asked, "Really?" The fatty patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, sir. I'm a proper merchant, and a who at that. I'm in a hurry to return to Dashi, so I'll keep my word on these materials." "Really? Little brother, is what you said true? We only need to name a price for these pieces of cloth?" "Little brother, don't you think you're right?" All the onlookers were aghast. They hurriedly stepped forward and grabbed a piece of cloth, shouting with red eyes. The fatty wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "Everyone, I'm sure you all know the price of these materials. However, because that unscrupulous Guanlong Corporation is wantonly suppressing us, we can't do anything about it. So, in order to not lose too much, we've lowered the price to the lowest. But don't worry. I've said before that these materials were originally worth more than 100 taels. But now they only cost 10 taels." Hearing this, everyone was disappointed. Even the old patriarch had a look of deep disappointment in his eyes at this moment. The fat man's eyes swept across everyone's faces before he said, "Old man, this is my first time meeting you. You're my first customer. I'm a man of my word. Just name a price. We'll definitely give you these 2 bolts of cloth." "Really?" "I'll keep my word." Then, the old man stretched out 3 trembling fingers and said, 50 taels?" Chapter 257. 50 copper coins. At this time, A bolt of silk cloth was worth 200 copper coins. This was the normal price. But at this moment, this rotten old man actually offered 50 copper coins? He could sell it? And it was a buy one get one free situation. Was he an idiot? All the onlookers, the peddlers, the merchants, and even the patrolling soldiers all stopped to watch the show. Even the patrolling soldiers unsheathed their swords at this moment. As long as this fellow dared to deny his previous words, they dared to swarm up and take this troublemaker to jail, letting him have a taste of what it was like to lie. Moreover, their families were lacking in food and clothing. If they could really buy a bolt of cloth at this price, then they would go and snatch one. Zhang Feng glanced at him with interest before leaving. The situation here was basically settled. The merchant was bound to make a killing. At this moment, in the crowd, the officials from the Bureau of Works and Bureau of Punishments were anxiously waiting for the merchant to give a reasonable answer. But at this moment, that fatty unexpectedly agreed. "Old sir, you are my first customer today." Then as the first customer, the rules of my Abbasid Caliphate are that we will pay whatever you say. Then 50 copper coins. You hand over the money and I hand over the goods, and these 2 bolts of cloth are yours. Really? The old tribal chief was also rather surprised. And it was a shock. He had never intended to buy the cloth with this amount of money, but now? He had actually agreed. "I'm sure." The fatty stood on the carriage once more, raising a bolt of cloth and roaring, "We merchants value our reputation the most. Every mouthful of saliva is a nail in the nail. Since I've agreed, I'll do as I say." Everyone's eyes turned red. When they saw the old sir hand over 50 copper coins to the fatty, choose 2 bolts of cloth from the fatty's carriage, and happily leave, everyone exploded and swarmed forward. "Boss, I want 10 bolts of cloth." "I want 3 bolts." "Me too." "Me too." Everyone began to scramble for the cloth, and the fatty heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at the frenzied crowd, he revealed his yellow teeth. "Everyone, don't be anxious, don't be anxious. Listen to me." He didn't take the money. Instead, he slowly said, "This time it's all because of those damned Guanlong nobles. I don't know what's gotten into them, but they sealed off all the trade routes. Our goods can't be shipped out. And you also know that we came all the way to the Tang dynasty just to make a living. But unfortunately, we encountered such a situation, so we had no choice but to do this." "Fatty, what do you mean?" The people in the crowd were furious. No one was a fool. When they heard this, everyone instantly came to a realization. Could it be that this bastard wanted to revert to the original price? "Fatty, this is the Tang dynasty. If you dare to cheat, I'll let you have a taste of my Chong and local government." The patrolling soldiers in the crowd were angry. The fatty's face was pale as he waved his hands. "Sir, please calm down and listen to me carefully. Businessmen, especially foreign businessmen, were subject to strict laws in the Tang dynasty. If they encountered those who cheated or wanted to steal, they would be thrown into prison and expelled from the Tang dynasty. They would never be allowed to step into the Tang dynasty again. This was the attitude of the Tang dynasty towards foreigners. How could the fatty not be anxious at this time? He hurriedly explained, "This time, it's our fault. I didn't make it clear before. I just said that this old man is our first customer. Everyone heard that, right? So for this matter, for the first customer, we will usually satisfy his request. But for the later ones, it's not so bad." Under the angry eyes of the crowd, the fatty hurriedly said, "But the price is still 200 coins per bolt. On this basis, we'll give you a bolt of cloth. It's 100 coins per bolt. Of course, if you want to buy a bolt of cloth, we'll charge 90 coins. That's fine." Hearing this, the crowd could not help but frown and slowly calculate. Most of the people left angrily, but there were still some people who were counting on their fingers, calculating something. In the end, someone made a move. 90 coins, and he really bought a bolt of cloth. This time, the people who were still hesitating finally could not help but make a move. They all made a move. On the other side, all the onlooking businessmen frowned thoughtfully and calculated. Some people even followed the fatty's method. Sure enough, in this way, the things that no one was interested in were instantly sold out. Even the patrolling soldiers could not help but rush forward to buy. The figures of the Ministry of Works were hidden in the crowd. From time to time, they would record something in the small notebook in their arms. On the other side, there was no such good thing. This kind of thing only happened among the barbarian businessmen and foreign businessmen, who were anxious not to get involved in the internal strife of the Tang dynasty. But the local businessmen of Chang were miserable. They did not have any rare goods in their hands. For the foreign businessmen, this was at most a small profit, but not a big loss. But for the businessmen of the Tang dynasty, this was a disaster. At this time, in the Chang and local government, the high pile of complaints made the county magistrate's head ache. When had he ever seen such a thing? At this time, in the back hall of the county government, the county magistrate, Zhu Dashan, was sweating and pacing back and forth in the room. Beside him, the advisor with a goatee, who was as thin as a monkey, was half squinting and sitting motionless on the chair. If it were not for his beard that moved from time to time, everyone would think that he was asleep. At this time, a yeoman runner rushed into the back hall and reported, "Sir, something happened to Sir." Hearing this, Zhu Dashan and the advisor's eyes twitched. They asked in unison, "What happened?" "The Ministry of Works is here." Chapter 258. Zhu Dashan heaved a deep sigh of relief. He hurriedly shouted, "Then why are you still standing there? Hurry up and invite them in." He did not dare to go to the front hall. In the front hall, there was already a sea of people, crying and wailing. He was worried. Whenever he heard the merchants' cries, he would have a headache. However, he had no choice but to listen. The people from the Ministry of Works were here. What could he do? However, it would be easier to handle if someone in charge came. This was the Ministry of Works matter. If the Ministry of Works had not set up a cooperative, would things have turned out this way? Zhu Dashan knew very well that this was a matter between the emperor and the Guanlong group. As a lowly county magistrate, it was not easy for him to judge. How could he judge? Could he say it was the Ministry of Works? He did not dare. Could he say it was Guanlong's fault? Did he still want to live? Did he still want to eat rice? Therefore, he did not dare to offend anyone. One was his immediate superior. If he was careless, his head would roll. The other was the biggest business team in the Tang dynasty. If he dared to offend them, he could guarantee that he would not be able to buy a single grain of rice tomorrow. That was the terrifying thing about the Guanlong group. Just as Zhu Dashan was letting his imagination run wild, the people from the Ministry of Works came in. Zhu Dashan and his private advisor forced an ugly smile when they saw the person. They bowed and said, "Lord Sun, you're finally here." The person who came was a minor supervisor from the Ministry of Works. However, even a minor supervisor like him could not compare to his position as a county magistrate. That was because the supervisor worked in the palace, while he was just a minor county magistrate. Zhu Dashan, let me ask you, how many cases have the Chang and local government received this time about the road closures caused by Guanlong? The person who came was concise and comprehensive. Obviously, he did not care about his complaints. Zhu Dashan hurriedly replied, "Lord Sun, the Chang and local government received a total of 90 complaints today. I dare not judge the cases so easily, so I've already submitted them to the higher-ups." Lord Sun frowned and nodded. "That's all for now. As for the future, we'll talk about it later. Delay all cases as long as you can. The Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Justice have already intervened in this matter. As for the complaints in the future, submit them to the Ministry of Justice immediately. At that time, the Ministry of Justice will give you a unified answer." "Yes, I understand." Zhu Dashan heaved a sigh of relief. It would be great if he didn't have to make a move. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but it was obvious that this matter had exceeded the scope of what he could handle. He did not dare to move. Obviously, this was the best way. The people from the Ministry of Works hurriedly left. An hour after the people from the Ministry of Works left, notices were posted everywhere in Chang'an City. From today onwards, all merchants who are involved in hoarding goods can report to the Ministry of Justice. As for the punishment, the Ministry of Justice will give you an explanation within 3 days. All the merchants and commoners panicked when they saw the announcement from the Ministry of Justice. Although he said that he would give an explanation 3 days later. However, This was only an explanation. He didn't say anything about solving it. Everyone panicked. Looking at the notices, all the merchants blocked all the people from the Ministry of Justice who came to put up the notices and asked, "Sir, the notice says that there will be an explanation in 3 days. However, what we are hoarding are smuggled goods that we bought from the treasury. How can we still use them after 3 days?" "That's right. Milord, the goods in our hands were all obtained from the treasury. Can we return the goods first? We can't wait for a day. How many aquatic products will die? Sir, please take pity on us and let us feel at ease." Everyone who put up the notices panicked. Actually, I can understand everyone's concerns. However, this matter has alarmed the Emperor. Therefore, I ask everyone to be patient and wait for a while. Right now, His Majesty is dealing with this matter, so at the latest tomorrow, His Majesty will make a decision. At the same time, in Taiji Palace, Li Shimin's hair, which had returned to its original black color after eating the powder of the locust eggs, had turned white again. After a night, his black hair had already turned gray. He was worried. He did not expect Guanlong's suppression to start when hoarding began in Chang'an City. Every time Li Shimin thought of this matter, he wished he could slap himself a few times. How good would it be if he had listened to Zhang Feng at that time? He would not be trapped in a hopeless situation now. However, what could he do now? Everything was trapped in Chang'an. If he did not come up with a solution today, Chang'an would be in chaos. What should he do? What should he do? Li Shimin was even more worried. Looking at the Emperor, little Gizi wanted to say something again, but he held himself back in the end. However, after seeing the Emperor in so much pain, he could not help but say, "Your Majesty, why don't we ask Zhang Feng for help? Since he was able to predict this matter, then he must have a way to solve this matter." "Brother Zhang Feng." Li Shimin heard this and a strange look flashed across his eyes. I am ashamed to face Brother Zhang Feng. Chapter 259. On the streets of Chang'an, Li Shimin sat in an ordinary sedan chair. Through the curtains, he looked at the goods piled up like mountains outside. His head hurt again. This time, he did not ask anyone to accompany him. It was just him, a carriage, and a group of guards. It was that simple. This way, he could see the real Chang'an City. When he had time, he wanted to walk around Chang'an City alone and talk about it with Zhang Feng. But he could not do it. He was the emperor of the Tang dynasty. If he did not do something right, he would be impeached by all the civil and military officials in the imperial court. It was the same this time. Li Shimin waited for a day and a night. Not a single official came up with a good idea because of this matter. Instead, during the morning court session, he met many who came to complain. They came to impeach the Ministry of Works and himself. These were his officials. Li Shimin felt a wave of sadness. A wave of deep sadness. This was his imperial court. When there was nothing going on, everyone was a good official. But once something happened to the Tang dynasty, a large group of people would come to impeach someone. Sometimes, Li Shimin wanted to directly confront Zhang Feng and ask him to reorganize the imperial college. He wanted to find someone who could really think for the Tang dynasty. But he did not dare. He did not want to. His relationship with Zhang Feng was so bluntly announced. More importantly, he cared too much about Zhang Feng. So, he did not want Zhang Feng to be trapped in the filthy place of the imperial court so early. At this time, his mind was full of that mysterious scripture. That was the thing that was rumored to be passed down by Shun. It was the thing that helped the king of Qin to unify the world. It was the thing that made everyone crazily fight for it. Was it true or not? At this time, Li Shimin was very conflicted. He didn't know what he had done wrong to cause the entire country to fall into a situation where it was controlled by others. Whether it was Guanlong, the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs, or even the Tujue who was waiting for an opportunity by his bed, all of them were blocking his path. "Master Li, we're here." Just as Li Shimin was letting his imagination run wild, little Gizi quietly reminded Li Shimin from outside the sedan. Li Shimin took a deep breath and looked at the familiar yet strange Tonghui Square, which was also the market where Zhang Feng lived. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the palanquin. With a wave of his hand, he ordered the Jianghu guards, who were disguised as attendants, to hide in the shadows and guard the area. He even ordered Xiao Gizi to wait at the entrance of the square. Only then did he sort out his emotions and slowly walk towards Zhang Feng's tavern. Just as he turned 3 alleys, he saw Zhang Feng with his hands clasped behind his back, kicking a broken tile as he walked back. Brother Zhang Feng. You're going out. Li Shimin was surprised. He could clearly see that Zhang Feng was thinking about something. When Zhang Feng saw Li Shimin, he was also stunned. The foot that he kicked out slipped, and he instantly stumbled and fell to the ground. Seeing this, Li Shimin hurried forward to help him up. Lao Li? Why are you here? Shouldn't you be helping Lord Zhang's son deal with this mess right now? Right, what I asked Li Gan to tell you last time. Did you tell Zhang's son Wuji? Li Shimin sighed and silently helped Zhang Feng up. Seeing this, Zhang Feng's face darkened. This Lao Li, how could he be so careless about such an important matter? Zhang Feng's face also changed slightly. Follow me into the house. Zhang Feng did not waste any more words. The current situation did not allow him to waste any more words. After entering the tavern, Zhang Feng did not take any wine, nor did he go to the kitchen as usual. Instead, he took a bag of tiger jerky wrapped in oil paper from the counter and poured a cup of tea for Li Shimin. Then he asked, Lao Li, tell me the truth. How much of this matter did you participate in? If it's not much, then just treat it as spending money to avoid disaster. Don't get too used to it. Brother Zhang Feng. Li Shimin sighed and said, last time you asked Qian'er, that bastard, to pass the message to me. I also heard him tell me the truth. However, I may have been blinded by lard. I didn't take Guanlong's matter to heart. After all, it was the emperor's matter. How could we, the common people, get involved? However, I did not expect Guanlong's grandson to be so vicious. He directly cut off all the trade routes. Now, even if I wanted to ignore it, I have no choice. I directly bet all my wealth from the treasury on Zhenla's seafood. Originally, I wanted to get you some of that arm-length prawn thing you mentioned. But now, it's a little inauspicious, so today, I did not bring. Zhang Feng pulled a handful of hair, his face full of worry. Tell me the truth. How much seafood did you get from Zhenla? Almost all my wealth. Zhang Feng was a little dizzy. This fool. Don't you know that a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows? Are you still king businessman? Don't you know this kind of thing? I've tried so hard to persuade you so much, but you've turned a deaf ear to my advice. Zhang Feng was speechless. He rubbed his temples, feeling a headache. Fine. Lao Li, I can't help you this time. I already told you to send your precious son to the military camp to seek refuge. I asked Lord Zhang's son to pass a message to divert everyone's attention to the war at the border, but you didn't listen. Now, you didn't prepare anything and they blocked the door for you. Now I can't do anything. Chapter 260. Li Shimin heard this. He felt a little dizzy. Brother Zhang Feng, you can't do this. If you do this, I, Lao Li, can't live anymore. You also know our current situation. If we want to escape now, it's too late. When the time comes, if the emperor comes to settle accounts, then won't my family be confiscated and my ancestors exterminated? Zhang Feng glared at him. Now you remember what I said? I told you not to invest all your money, but you didn't listen. Now what are you going to do? You're blocking my way. What can I do? Zhang Feng was speechless. Logically speaking, the emperor was not a fool. How could he not know that Guanlong was such a big threat? If this were to happen, the great Tang would be doomed. They would be blocked at any time. Zhang Feng couldn't help but comfort him. However, Lao Li, don't worry. It's not all bad. At least, the cooperative and marketing model have been quietly implemented under such high pressure. You didn't see that fatty from Dashi country today. I almost thought that it was you who set up the trap. Li Yundong said with a smile. That fatty from Dashi country? That fat man was indeed arranged by me. He came to me before, so I used this trick on him. Brother Zhang Feng, what do you think? Li Shimin finally regained some of his pride. Not bad. Zhang Feng curled his lips. I've told you this many times, and I used it last time in Longyu Road. If you don't know how to use it now, then you're really hopeless. However, this is just a drop in the bucket. Even if all the people in Chang'an City participate in the purchase, they still can't stop the blockade of Chang, and by the Guanlong group this time. So, the key is to solve the problem from the root. Have you thought about it? Li Shimin couldn't help but slowly frown. Alas! Brother Zhang Feng, how can I not think about it? I've been thinking too much. Do you know how I spent the night last night? In the Imperial Palace. Do you know about the Imperial Palace? All those big shots were pressuring me so much that I didn't even dare to breathe loudly. But even so, I still haven't come up with a solution. When Zhang Feng heard this, he rubbed his chin and asked, "What did the Emperor say? Have you seen His Majesty?" "No." Li Shimin shook his head like a rattledrum. "Although I didn't see His Majesty, I heard that His Majesty hasn't slept for 2 nights. I'm guessing he's worried about this matter." "What the F***ck were you doing earlier?" Zhang Feng was speechless. If he had thought of these things earlier, he wouldn't be in such a passive position now. "Mother ***ker, to think that I thought he had a plan beforehand. That's why I mentioned it the last time your precious son came. I didn't expect it to be nothing at all. What does he do? How long has it been since the founding of the Tang dynasty? Has he forgotten the pain so quickly?" Zhang Feng was speechless. Li Shimin's face turned red. But what could he do? He had indeed forgotten about the Guanlong group before, but he thought that Guanlong wouldn't do anything since it was a mutually beneficial thing. But he didn't expect Guanlong to be so ruthless this time. "Mother ***ker, you've monopolized the economy of the Tang dynasty. I just want to make some money, but you still want to suppress me. What the hell is this?" At this time, Li Shimin had an impulse. "If it really doesn't work, I'll just eradicate them all. The Tang dynasty's economic development will only be weakened for a few years. Li Shimin can still bear it." Thinking of this, Li Shimin interrupted Zhang Feng's chatter and asked, "Brother Zhang Feng, do you think His Majesty wants to uproot these guys? In other words, send the army to eradicate them?" "No." Zhang Feng waved his hand. "As long as His Majesty isn't a fool, he won't do such a stupid thing. Think about it. Once His Majesty sends the army, the internal strife against the Tang dynasty won't be limited to Guanlong, but the entire western regions will be in chaos. Just think about how the previous dynasty fell and you'll understand. Guanlong has a long history, and he has a large number of supporters and beneficiaries in various countries. This ensures that he won't hang himself in one place. Once there's a problem in one place, other places will react in an instant. Think about the consequences." Hearing this, Li Shimin couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. A touch of sadness flashed in his eyes. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin, shook his head, and patted him on the shoulder. "Lao Li, don't worry too much about this matter. His Majesty knows what he's doing. Otherwise, why would I call him the Emperor of all ages? Then, Brother Zhang Feng, if it were you, what would you do? How would you solve this dilemma?" Basically, Chang'an City and all the important economic areas of the Tang dynasty are basically paralyzed at the same time. If the problem isn't solved in a short time, what awaits the Tang dynasty won't just be my business, but the entire Tang dynasty's economic decline. I really don't want to see this. Zhang Feng nodded. He walked to the door of the tavern, opened it, and looked around. He asked Guzi and the others, who were squatting on the ground and playing with mud, to help him look around. Then, he returned to Li Shimin's side and whispered, "Actually, I do have a way. It's the only way." Chapter 261. What is it? Li Shimin grabbed Zhang Feng's hand excitedly. His burning gaze made Zhang Feng's hair stand on end. He shook off Zhang Feng's hand with a look of disgust and said, "Let's talk about it. Don't drag me around. I haven't even talked about my wife yet. If someone else saw this, it would be terrible." Okay. Tell me quickly. You're making me anxious." How could Li Shimin not be anxious? At this time, it would be strange if he wasn't anxious. Seeing Zhang Feng dragging his feet, Li Shimin was so anxious that he wanted to strangle him. Zhang Feng couldn't stand Li Shimin's burning gaze and said, "In fact, anyone who hangs around Chang'an City knows about this." "What?" Zhang Feng wasn't anxious. He asked, "Lao Li, let me ask you. Are all the trade routes in Chang'an City and in Luozhou blocked?" "That's true. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so anxious. As long as the siege of Chang'an and Luozhou is lifted, Guanlong's suppression will collapse. But the problem is how to get rid of this thing. You said that the emperor can't go to war with Guanlong. He can't surrender to Guanlong either. What else can we do? Don't tell him to surrender and lose half of it. Otherwise I, Lao Li, will despise you." Li Shimin's words were quite good at the beginning, but the meaning of his words changed as he spoke. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel anxious. He pointed at himself and asked with a puzzled look, "Me? Zhang Feng. Am I that kind of person? Which eye of yours saw or which ear of yours heard Lao Tzu telling him to surrender? This is obviously not our Zhang Feng style, okay? You've been with me for so long. Don't you understand my style? Lao Tzu would rather twist the enemy's head off than lower his head. This is the pride of a man." In other words, he was proud and unyielding. "Let me ask you, do you have any pride?" "Yes." Li Shimin also hurriedly patted his chest and promised. In the entire world, who could make him lower his head? Other than heaven and earth and their parents, who else would dare? He, Li Shimin, still had this bit of pride. Zhang Feng shrugged. "Isn't that enough? Then why are you asking such an idiotic question?" Li Shimin rubbed his hands and said, "Isn't that because I'm scared?" "What are you afraid of? His Majesty isn't in a hurry, so what are you in a hurry for? With your family background, if you throw it at the gate of the Guanlong group, they might not even look at it." Zhang Feng despised Li Shimin. Okay, my family business is small, but you don't have to hurt me like this, do you? Now that everything is in front of your eyes, do you have the heart to see me suffer here?" Li Shimin shrugged with a wry smile. Zhang Feng shrugged. "Okay, in that case, I won't tease you anymore. Let me ask you, what did you hear from His Majesty last night? And did His Majesty not prepare for it at all?" "No." Li Shimin shook his head. If he had prepared for this matter, how could the current situation have happened? Perhaps this was what they meant by extreme joy begets sorrow. Hearing this, Zhang Feng paced back and forth in the room with his hands behind his back. The current situation was a dilemma for the Tang dynasty. Zhang Feng's expression suddenly changed. Could it be that because of his appearance, everything in the Tang dynasty had developed steadily in a short period of time, and then the normal trajectory of history had deviated from the original? And then there was a chain reaction? But that couldn't be right. Even if he appeared, he just sped up the world by a small step, and everything he did was just a small step. Only this cooperative was a big move. Was it because of this that everything in the world was in chaos? The Guanlong group took action, and the hidden behemoths behind me would also show their ferocious fangs at this moment. At that time, with the cooperation of these two behemoths, what would happen to the Tang dynasty? Zhang Feng didn't dare to think about it. Part of all this must be because of the cooperative, and the bigger reason might be that in this world, the traditional model could make the world change. Since it was going to change, Zhang Feng clenched his fists. Looking at the sunlight outside the window, he roared in his heart. Since it's going to change, then the rule of Zhen Guan will start from this time to fight against Guanlong. Turning around, Zhang Feng said to Li Shimin with a serious look, "This time, we're going to open up a new trade route and take away the prestige and industries of Guanlong and the 5 families. Do you dare to do it? If you do, I think the current emperor will like it very much. At that time, you'll either fail on the verge of success and become a scapegoat, or you'll become a supreme scholar in one fell swoop. Do you dare to do it? Open up a new trade route?" This, over the past thousands of years, all the businesses had been built slowly over time. If this was really a new business, then this. Li Shimin didn't dare to think about it. However, when he thought about everything controlled by the Guanlong group and the 5 families, he couldn't help but ask, "What is the new trade route you mentioned?" Zhang Feng didn't answer him, but said, "I remember that outside Chang'an City, there are 8 rivers, right?" Chapter 262. 8 Rivers Circle? How could Li Shimin not know about these 8 rivers? These 8 rivers were Wei, Jing, Feng, Watershed, Bai, and Ba. However, these 8 rivers were basically blocked by silt. In addition, in recent years, The imperial court did not pay attention to these 8 rivers for the Tang dynasty. Therefore, these rivers were basically stranded. However, why would Zhang Feng suddenly say this at this time? Could it be that he wants to use these 8 rivers to change the siege? This doesn't seem to be possible. Li Shimin could not help but ask tentatively, Brother Zhang Feng, do you mean to use these 8 rivers as a breakthrough point? And then bypass the Guanlong group's blockade? This plan is good, but have you thought about these rivers? Before Li Shimin could finish, Zhang Feng interrupted him. I know all these things. But have you thought about it? Is there any place in the world that can compare to Chang'an City? Only Chang'an has such a favorable geographical location. But why not take advantage of this convenient route given by the heavens and use the dry road instead? Now that there are dry roads, you can go and take a look. There are people from the Guanlong group everywhere. Everyone underestimated these 8 rivers. Even the Guanlong group did not expect that in their perfect plan, this would be their biggest failure. Li Shimin was finally shocked. 8 rivers. Yes. He had been to countless places. Where else could he encounter the geographical advantage of the 8 waters raising city? No. This was also the biggest reason why they chose to build the capital here. The timing, location, and people were all right. On the top, there was the Yellow Desert, which could stop the Turks. There was also the Qinling Mountains, which formed a natural barrier. On the left, there was the Endless Plain, which could be rushed. There was even the Yellow River, which made transportation more convenient. However, everyone had forgotten the natural advantage of being at their doorstep during the successive years of war. The 8 waters. 9 was the pinnacle, and the imperial city was located here. This was also the biggest reason why this location was chosen. Everyone only felt that this geographical advantage was blessed by the heavens, but they forgot one point, and that was to make use of it. With Zhang Feng's slight explanation, Li Shimin instantly understood. He hurriedly clasped his fist and said, Thank you, Brother Zhang Feng. I understand now. You mean to let people clear all the silt in the rivers as soon as possible, and then use the 8 rivers to solve the current siege? Right. You've finally figured it out. Zhang Feng nodded approvingly. This time, you finally understand. This is the only way out for Chang'an. I really don't know why His Majesty won't make use of such an advantage. His Majesty is really... Li Shimin's eyelids twitched. He hurriedly said again, Well, I won't disturb you anymore. I'll go back and report this matter to my superiors. Sorry to bother you today, Brother Zhang Feng. See you next time. As he spoke, Li Shimin took out a brand new banknote, put it on the table, and then left in a hurry. Zhang Feng curiously took the banknote, which looked like a banknote but was slightly bigger than a banknote, put it under his nose and took a deep breath. The memory of my previous life is still too little after all. On the other side, Chang'an City was in a mess. Especially those who had bought seafood from the Chang'an City treasury, they were even more anxious now. The weather in Chang'an City was hotter than anywhere else. In addition, in the past 2 days, the sudden rumor of road closures in Chang'an City made the merchants even more flustered. At this time, hundreds of merchants were either squatting, standing, or lying at the entrance of the treasury, wailing in grief. At the entrance of the treasury, the officials of the treasury were also struggling to deal with the crowd. I can't live like this anymore. I spent a few thousand taels of silver to buy these things that your treasury guaranteed. Dozens of pounds have died today, and we haven't even left Chang'an City yet. Oh my God. Open your eyes. Your Excellency. You were the one who said that if there was a problem, your treasury would take responsibility. What do you say now? Our things can't even leave Chang'an City. How are we going to get these things? Everyone. We are all aware of everyone's difficulties. But we have just informed the higher-ups about this matter. It is said that a special person from Zhenla is on his way here. Before the closure is lifted, he will help you raise these marine fish. Don't worry, all of you. An official's face darkened as he shouted, but the crowd became even angrier. Bull*T. If you are willing to solve it, that's good. We will return the goods. Once the road is lifted, we will come back to buy more, okay? We can't afford to lose this kind of consumption. Your Excellency, please do us a favor. It has only been half a day today, and almost 300 pounds of my fish have died. If they continue to die, my goods will really lose everything. Your Excellency. At this time, all the officials were furious. How could they return these things? One of the officials could not help but roar. Don't worry, everyone. I'm Zhao Er, the steward of the Chong and local government treasury. You just have to wait a little longer. After today, everything will be fine. Trust me. I'll use my head as a guarantee. If this matter hasn't been resolved by tomorrow morning, I'll give my head to you. Chapter 263. The Imperial Palace. It was bleak and somewhat miserable. In the huge Imperial Palace, the sun was like a big stove, crazily heating up the Imperial City. The people in the city seemed to have lost their souls, listlessly carrying out the things in their hands. If it weren't for the chamberlains of Imperial insignia and the Imperial guards marching in unison, the Imperial City would have been nothing more than a dead zone. At the moment when the clock struck midnight, teams of Jianghu guards in ordinary clothes hurriedly entered the Imperial City from the Vermilion Bird Gate, escorting an ordinary sedan chair. The moment the palanquin appeared, everyone was flabbergasted. But when everyone saw the leader, Xianxia, all the people on the road knelt on the ground one after another. They no longer despised the heat of the floor. Li Shimin was in the palanquin. He was issuing orders from the palanquin, and the number of Jianghu guards around the palanquin was rapidly shrinking. When the last order was drafted, Li Shimin was a little hesitant. A moment later, he crushed a document that had just been drafted in his hand and asked, Xianxia, how many people in Chong and City bought the seafood from the treasury? How many seafood have not been disposed of? Xianxia bowed even lower when he heard this. Your Majesty, according to the report just now, there are about 30,000 fish in the Sea of Stone in the treasury that have not been disposed of. Due to the temperature, a large number of these fish die every hour. Li Shimin frowned. Did Zhen-La's people not come to help? I remember that King Zhenla had promised me that these fish would be alive and kicking before they left the vault. However, why are there so many requests for returns and a large number of deaths in my hands? This. Your Majesty. How could Xianxia not know that Li Shimin was angry? Wiping away his sweat, who knew if it was cold or hot, he said, This is all because of the closure of the trade route. Also, I heard that because of the hot weather many people, according to the instructions of the wax people, threw the fish into the river to soak, so send a fax to Lord Zhenla. When I return to Taiji Palace, I want to see Lord Zhenla. Li Shimin was angry. The thing he was most afraid of had happened in the end. The other goods were still fine, but this seafood was alive. If there was even the slightest mistake, it would definitely cause an immeasurable loss. It would even cause all the merchants to avoid this item in the future. In that case, how could they talk about trade? He had eaten this thing before. It was delicious. He never doubted Zhang Feng's words, because if he looked down on Zhang Feng's words, reality would give him a slap. This time was a good example. Therefore, Li Shimin was afraid. What he was afraid of was that this newly established cooperative would cause irreparable losses because of this small matter. This was especially true for the plans of Tubo and the other countries. Zhenla's product was the best opportunity. Li Shimin would never allow any problems to occur. A moment later, the sedan chair finally appeared outside Taiji Palace. When the sedan chair appeared, groups of palace maids, who had been waiting there, fell to the ground uniformly. Even Wei Zhang and the others had been waiting for a long time. Greetings, Your Majesty. When Li Shimin got off the sedan chair, everyone knelt down uniformly. Li Shimin waved his sleeves. Rise! Then, palace maids helped Li Shimin change into a robe as he hurried into Taiji Palace. When Li Shimin's figure appeared in Taiji Palace, King Zhenla also got up slowly. When he saw the solemn expression on Li Shimin's face, King Zhenla's eyes flickered rapidly. Greetings, Your Majesty. You may dispense with the formalities, King Zhenla. Li Shimin stepped forward to help King Zhenla up. Without any formalities, he said directly, I called you here today because I have something important to discuss with you. I'm sure you already know about what happened in Chang'an. I would like to ask King Zhenla if those marine fishes can still be saved. Yes. King Zhenla's eyes flickered as he thought to himself, as expected. When he saw Li Shimin heave a long sigh of relief, King Zhenla said, The water of these marine fishes is definitely different from the water of the Tang dynasty. I forgot to tell your majesty about this. After hearing about this from my subordinates today, I also thought about it carefully. This matter can actually still be resolved. As long as your majesty can remove the blockade of the trade route in a short period of time, I can guarantee that the loss of these fishes will be minimized within half a month. Really? Upon hearing this, Li Shimin's face was filled with joy. I don't know how your majesty wants to handle this matter. I'll listen to you. However, as you know, most of the things in the Chong and local treasury have been sold. At this time, many merchants are gathered at the entrance of the treasury, looking for a solution. How can this be solved? Li Shimin was not worried that King Zhenla did not know how to save the marine fishes. As a person who grew up by the sea, if he did not have this ability, he would have lived in vain. The most difficult part was how to save the things that had been sold. Otherwise, the trade route? It was just a joke. King Zhenla also frowned when he heard this. After pacing around the imperial study for a while, he said, "If your majesty trusts me, I dare to send more than 3,000 of my personal guards to help these merchants and save those marine fishes in a short period of time. As for the dead ones, if they are not rotten, I can also restore some of their value." Upon hearing this, Li Shimin was overjoyed. King Zhenla, just tell me, what do you need? I can satisfy you. Ha ha ha. King Zhenla laughed heartily. I don't need anything, just 10 carriages of poisonous salt. Chapter 264. Li Shimin didn't understand the principle behind it. But if Zhang Feng was here, he would definitely know. The poisonous salt was the crystallization of seawater after it dried up naturally. If it was added to water, it would turn ordinary water into seawater. And the dried salted fish made from dead fish would be coveted by people in the future. But Li Shimin didn't care about all this. What he cared about was to control the turmoil in Chang'an City in the shortest time possible. As for the rest, he didn't care. Even if King Zhenla asked Li Shimin to help him kill someone, Li Shimin wouldn't hesitate. In the end, King Zhenla left in a hurry. After King Zhenla left, Wei Zhang and the others hurried into Taiji Palace. As soon as they entered, Li Shimin said without waiting for the others to salute, "Today, I've found a solution." Hearing this, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but then frowned again. "Your Majesty, all the trade routes in Chang'an City have been blocked by Guanlong. How can you find a solution so quickly?" I think that if Brother Zhang Feng can fly, there will be a turning point in this matter. Fly? Old man, do your family know that you're so mean to Brother Zhang Feng? Okay. Li Shimin waved his hand. At this time, he was no longer as dignified as before. He slowly took a sip of tea and said, "In fact, it's not so troublesome to fly." Wei Zhang hurriedly asked, "Your Majesty, do you mean to take the trade route? Does your Majesty want to use the Imperial City Guards? Do you want to force open a road?" Hearing this, everyone was aghast. This was tantamount to starting a war. If we really start a war with Guanlong, wouldn't we? Everyone's face couldn't help but turn pale at this moment. Especially after looking at Li Shimin's expression that everything was under his control, everyone became even more anxious. Cheng Yaojin even gritted his teeth, got down on one knee and said, "Your Majesty, if you need the Imperial City Garrison Army, then this general's battle axe would have rusted long ago. How about letting me lead the army?" "Empress." Li Shimin shook his head slightly. "Don't panic." Hearing this, everyone was even more confused. How could they not panic? He was about to shed all pretense of cordiality with Guanlong. Li Shimin looked at everyone's genuine anxiety and couldn't help but feel the last trace of warmth. In this cold imperial court, at least there are some people who are truly thinking for me and the Tang dynasty. Shen. Li Shimin sounded a little excited. He slowly stood up. When Li Shimin opened his mouth, everyone hurriedly looked at Li Shimin. "We were just as anxious as all of you before, perhaps even less indifferent than all of you. But only now do we truly understand that we are not the only ones in this icy imperial court, but all of you." Zhan is very happy. Hearing this, everyone was even more confused. But since the emperor said so, how could they dare to stand still? They all knelt down in unison. Your Majesty, we don't deserve it. It's our duty to share your Majesty's worries. Li Shimin waved his hand, motioning everyone to stand up, and then said, in fact, this matter is not enough to start a war with Guanlong, and it's not enough to fly into the sky or escape into the ground. If Brother Zhang Feng hadn't mentioned this before, I would have forgotten about it. In fact, Chang'an is not a place where there are no mountains and rivers. What? This? How is this possible? Your Majesty, now the commercial roads in Chang'an City, Luozhou City, and Liangzhou City are blocked. All goods can't be transported out, and all businessmen are waiting for death. If there is a little way, will they stop here? Wei Zhang and the others were dumbstruck. The emperor actually said that Chang'an City was not a place where there are no mountains and rivers? If there is a little way, will it be like this? Your Majesty, if there is a little way to do this, Chang'an. And we just went to ask Yuan Tiangang, and he didn't have a way. I wonder what kind of wonderful method can bring Chang'an back to life, Your Majesty? Bring the dead back to life. Li Shimin smiled. I said that Chang'an is not a place where there are no mountains and rivers. Li Shimin also showed off. He had completely forgotten the worried look on his face this morning. You asked Yuan Tiangang, but did he say why he chose Chang'an as the capital? Wei Zhang thought for a moment, discussed with Feng Xianling and others, and then said, I remember very clearly that Chang'an City was the place where the dragon veins converged, and there were 8 dragons occupying it, and Chang'an City was the only dragon eye. As long as Chang'an was occupied, the country would be prosperous and the people would be at peace. Yes. Li Shimin got up, looked at the crowd, and nodded. I forgot this sentence before, but today I suddenly heard another statement from Brother Zhang Feng. 8 rivers of Chang'an. Everyone looked at each other, and they were all shocked. 8 rivers or 8 dragons, they all knew. But the emperor said that Chang'an was not a place where there are no mountains and rivers, and now he said 8 rivers. Could it be? Did the emperor mean 8 rivers? Was it the way to solve this crisis? Chapter 265. That's right. This is the only way to solve Guanlong's blockade. I didn't think of it before, but when I was chatting with Brother Zhang Feng, he reminded me. The 8 rivers of Chang'an surround Chang'an and converge at the Yellow River. Isn't this a natural trade route? To the west, you can enter the Qinling Mountains, and to the south, you can enter Luozhou. If Guanlong's people had known about this route, I might have paid them a visit today with gifts. But God bless us. The 8 rivers of Chang'an, which we have neglected all this time, unexpectedly became my final solution to Chang'an's crisis. Li Shimin was filled with endless emotions. Wei Zhang and the others were also stunned by what they saw. The 8 rivers of Chang'an. They didn't expect that the final solution would be the 8 rivers of Chang'an. However, the 8 rivers of Chang'an had been abandoned and turned into stinking gutters. It was even worse than the moat of Chang'an City. Could this really solve Chang'an's crisis? Everyone couldn't help but gather together to discuss again. Only then did Wei Zhang begin. Your Majesty, although the 8 rivers of Chang'an are good, when the time comes, at least in this old subject's memory, this old subject has never cleaned it up even once. And every time there was a flood in the Qinling Mountains, the river would have been blocked by silt. Can this be used at this time? Your Majesty, this is a matter of great importance. Why don't we send someone to check it out tomorrow and then do something? Du Ruhui also tried to persuade him. Li Shimin waved his hand. He motioned for everyone to be quiet and then fell into deep thought. Someone in the imperial court must know about this matter. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been known by Guanlong's people so quickly. But who was Guanlong's person? Li Shimin didn't know. After all, there were too many people in the imperial court. There were so many that Li Shimin himself felt a headache. Although this matter was targeted by Guanlong, it was better to say that those in the imperial court were targeting him. Li Shimin's fingers dug deeply into his palm under his embroidered robe. The deep pain made him temporarily forget his impulse to clean up the court. Li Shimin lowered his head and closed his eyes, letting everyone see the killing intent in his eyes. A moment later, Li Shimin slowly opened his eyes. There's no need for tomorrow. Tonight, we will have everyone clear out the blockages in these rivers at all costs. Wei Zhang and Zhang Sun Wuji looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. 8 rivers, 1 night? How many people were needed? However, they also heard the implied meaning in Li Shimon's words. There were all kinds of demons and ghosts in the imperial court, and there were also many people with different surnames and 7 looks. The emperor wanted to avoid these people's eyes and ears and then deal with this matter before he was impeached by these people tomorrow morning. But one could imagine the difficulty of this matter. Emperor! At this moment, Cheng Yaojin was excited. He hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, you forgot someone." Hearing this, Li Shimon hurriedly asked, "Who?" "The Navy Commander Zhang Liang. If his navy joins in tonight's action, then this matter is absolutely foolproof. Night action is difficult. Although there is a bright moon at night, if a landlubber who is not familiar with water goes down, it will definitely be a gift to the Water Dragon King. So I'm sure that the Navy will be better at this than anyone else." Hearing this, Li Shimon stood up excitedly and patted Cheng Yaojin on the shoulder. Yes, how could I forget Zhang Liang? However, at this moment, Li Shimon's excited eyes dimmed again. Zhang Liang's troops are on the coast and near Luozhou. It's too far. Not far, not far. Cheng Yaojin's face flushed with excitement. He pushed Zhang Sun Wuji away and took Li Shimon to the map on the wall. He pointed to the 8 waterways and said, "Your Majesty, you don't know. Although Zhang Liang doesn't have a large army, I went to his house last time when I went to drink with him. Good guys, the yard is full of veterans. They are all good swimmers. These are all his loyal followers. After they retired, they had no place to go, so Zhang Liang kept them in his house. Fortunately, there are 3,000 mu of land. They are the ones who take care of it. But I always feel that it's a pity for these ducks to go ashore. I didn't expect to meet them tonight." Hearing this, Li Shimon couldn't help frowning slightly. In Zhang Liang's house, there were 3,000 retired veterans. What did Zhang Liang want to do? However, at this moment, Li Shimon couldn't help but smile. Patting the agitated Cheng Yaojin, he said, "Now that you mention it, we do remember. We had forgotten about this group of Navy soldiers who had once cut through all obstacles for the great Tang. However, 3,000 soldiers aren't enough." Hey, you don't know about this, right? Although Zhang Liang is idle at home outside Chang'an City, he is still in charge of recruiting Marines. The place he is at is the training ground for Marines. Last time, when we were drunk, he insisted on dragging me to swim. Good guy, there were tens of thousands of ducks in the dark. Success! Li Shimon's expression changed. He didn't expect that Zhang Liang would inadvertently save him. Pass down the decree. Let Zhang Liang bring all his men to the 8 rivers to clean up the waterways. If the cleanup is completed before dawn, I will personally set up the Chang and Navy residence and let this group of veterans manage the 8 rivers. Wei Zheng, we command you to personally announce the decree. You must announce it in front of all the Navy soldiers." Wei Zheng's eyes flashed, and he hurriedly bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." Chapter 266. In Chang'an City, near Anhuimen, the reclining square was a lot more deserted. It was basically a place for retired veterans to enjoy their old age. The premise was that they had to have their own house in Chang'an City. If they didn't have a house, they would be arranged to stay in Reclining Square. Hence, the name Reclining Square came about. In the past, it wasn't called Reclining Square. It was called Performing Arts Square. As many veterans stayed there, people jokingly called it Reclining Square, a good place to wait for euthanasia. To the west of Xia Reclining Square, near the Qingming Canal, was the mansion of Navy Admiral Zhang Liang. To the side of the mansion was the Qingming Canal. On the shore, there were magnificent buildings. There were docks, small boats, as well as water equipment used for training. In the filthy river, where piles of feces floated down, it seemed so. What was it? On the other side, a large group of dark-skinned muscular men with tanned skin as if they had been smeared with tung oil were following behind each other. A group of middle-aged men, who looked like teachers, had their hands behind their backs and were holding large bamboo poles in their hands. They squinted their eyes and stared at the surface of the water. On the other side, a man was leisurely chanting the number. Many times, even though he had already said 10, he seemed to be suffering from Alzheimer's. The next word he shouted would become two. Who the F*CK was two? However, all the dark-skinned men stuck their butts out and buried their heads deep in the water. They didn't dare to poke their heads out. At this time, if any unlucky man dared to poke his head out, what awaited him would be fried meat with bamboo poles in the hands of the veterans. At the highest point of the training ground, Zhang Liang stroked his white beard and squinted his eyes at the butts sticking out of the water. He couldn't help but nod. Not bad. Not bad. The quality of this year's batch is not bad. Old Lin, you've done well. When the salary from the Ministry of Works arrives, I'll reward you with 10 taels of silver. Beside Zhang Liang, a man with a mustache and a face full of pockmarks quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, Commander." Zhang Liang waved his hand. "Since you've already retired, you can just call me Old Master in the future. Do you think I won't dare to talk about this Commander-in-Chief outside?" Hearing this, Elder Lin hurriedly knelt on the ground, his body trembling with excitement. In this general's heart, you are still the Commander-in-Chief. It's always one for life. Ha ha ha. Good good good. Zhang Liang helped Old Lin up with great relief. However, at this moment, a nimble servant hurriedly climbed up the 30 zhang high platform and hurriedly reported, "Governor, Duke Zhang is here." Zhang Liang's eyes flashed. He waved his hand and asked, "What's the matter?" If you complete the task, I will appoint the person you choose as the steward of the Navy Mansion. From now on, he will be responsible for managing the 8 dragon veins in Chang'an. Hearing that, a mouthful of blood spurted out of Zhang Liang's mouth, and he completely fainted. Chapter 267. Wei Zhang sighed after announcing the imperial edict. Someone, summon the imperial physician. Quick! Send Governor Zhang back to his residence and take good care of him. Wei Zheng knew that this would happen today. If it weren't for this incident and the emperor's desire to clean up the 8 rivers, Zhang Liang's actions would have led to his demise. Now, Zhang Liang fainted, which was the best outcome. The emperor had only transferred all the navy veterans around him. Otherwise, if this incident were to spread to the ears of other officials, the imperial edict he was waiting for today would not be just this. It would be a crime of rebellion. The emperor allowed all the generals of the Tang dynasty to have private soldiers, but the number could only be controlled at 500. If the number exceeded this number, a light punishment would be a punishment, and a heavy punishment would be a crime. Zhang Liang taking in this group of veterans seemed to be a kind act, but when combined with his recruitment of new soldiers in Chang'an and the 3,000 veterans, how terrifying was this? If he had the slightest bit of disloyalty, he only needed to wave his hand gently, and all the waterways around Chang'an along the Chao River would go straight to Taiji Palace. How terrifying was this? Would the emperor allow this? Would the officials allow this, especially when the veterans who were good at swimming were sleeping soundly beside the bed? No, absolutely not. That was why Wei Zhang sighed when he saw Zhang Liang vomiting blood and fainting. When Chang Yaojin mentioned this incident, he had already seen the killing intent in the emperor's eyes. However, because of the current situation, the emperor did not say anything. However, there was no guarantee that the emperor would not settle accounts after this. Hopefully, Governor Zhang could understand the emperor's difficulties. Wei Zhang watched Zhang Liang leave before he continued, "And Lu Feng. What an excellent and Lu Feng." Before coming here, the old man did not know that this place had been renamed and Lu Feng. He also saw the situation here with his own eyes. The old and the weak who retired from the years of war. The imperial court neglected you. This is our fault. Wei Zhang sighed deeply and then bowed deeply in front of the frightened eyes of all the soldiers. Prime Minister Wei. Prime Minister Wei is actually bowing to us bumpkins? Everyone had tears in their eyes. Someone even knelt on the ground with a choked voice. Prime Minister Wei, you mustn't. Prime Minister Wei, you mustn't. We're all bumpkins with no status. You're torturing us by doing this. Minister Wei. Wei Zhang waved his hand. He gestured for everyone to rise. However, everyone still refused to get up no matter what. Wei Zhang could only sigh and say, "This bow is this official returning justice to all of you on behalf of the people of the world. This is your honor." This is the glory you've earned as soldiers. If you hadn't sacrificed your lives to protect the Tang dynasty and shed your blood for the founding of the Tang dynasty, how could the Tang dynasty flourish now? This official only wants to say one thing. His Majesty has not forgotten you. The people of the world have not forgotten you. Wei Zheng's voice was choking. As for the soldiers present, they all started to cry. Once upon a time, they had dreamed that one day, they would be recognized. But after the war ended, when they returned to their homes, they discovered that there was nothing left. Their relatives, neighbors, playmates that they had grown up with, and so on, were all gone. They had knelt in their homeland and cried bitterly. They had been lost and did not even know where to go. However, at that moment, the commander-in-chief had given them a home that could not be considered a home. It had been a few years, but the former emperor had not promised them a reward in Chang'an City. They had given up because they also knew that the Tang dynasty had just been established and needed an opportunity to develop. They had waited for a few years. Today, the emperor finally remembered them. How could they not be excited? Moreover, he had even set up a navy residence in Chang'an for them. What was that? That was an honor bestowed upon them by the emperor. It was a department set up by the emperor himself, and it was dedicated solely to the emperor. At that moment, they suddenly felt that their backs were straightened. They were no longer wandering ghosts. At that moment, they finally found the right to walk freely in their neighborhood and on Chang'an Street with an identity tag hanging on their waists. They were also people with an organization and status. Everyone wept bitterly once again. Even the cries here attracted the old and weak soldiers who were waiting to die in the reclining square. After they heard this news, their originally numb eyes suddenly shone with a light of excitement once again. We found our goal. The emperor has not forgotten us. The Tang dynasty has not forgotten us. Wei Zhang looked at the vast expanse of dark, tower-like men who were suffering under the scorching sun like children. He also choked with sobs. Those were the soldiers who had once exchanged their lives for the peace of the world. Wei Zhang had an impulse many times. He really wanted to grab those people in the court who opposed the soldiers and see if they could still be in the court peacefully if it were not for those bumpkin soldiers. Wei Zhang sighed deeply. The imperial censor and the eunuchs of the Minister of Internal Affairs behind him also fell silent. They lowered their heads and hurriedly recorded everything they saw. After a while, when the cries and venting voices had subsided a little, Wei Zhang shouted loudly, "The emperor has not forgotten the brothers who fought with him to build the Tang dynasty. It's just that the Tang dynasty has encountered some troubles now, and the emperor has no time to care about you. But now, your opportunity has come. Now, you all know what happened in Chang'an City, right? It's a trap. This is a test given by God to the Tang dynasty. Therefore, the emperor needs the brothers who fought with him in the past." Everyone was jealous. They roared at the top of their lungs. "I'm willing to climb the mountain of swords again for the emperor and die 1,000 times for him." "Good." Wei Zhang nodded and pointed to the stinky river beside them. "This is your new battlefield. His Majesty wants all of you to clean up these 8 rivers before dawn tomorrow. Can you do it?" "Yes. Even if we have to pay with our lives, we will make the water in these 8 rivers clear before dawn tomorrow." "Good. Then let's go. The Emperor is waiting for your new battle report in Taiji Palace." "Yes, sir." Chapter 268. Everyone, the Marines, the veterans watching from the shore, and the soldiers who were missing arms and legs, without waiting for anyone to give the order, jumped into the water with a splash. They used their hands or tools to clean up the muddy, stinky water with all their might. At the beginning, only tens of thousands of soldiers were doing it. But as the battle dragged on, the people of Chang'an were alarmed. After hearing Wei Zheng's words, he couldn't sit still anymore. The emperor was in danger. That was also the crisis of Chang'an City. At this time, the emperor even asked Prime Minister Wei to bow in order to lift the blockade of Chang'an City. How could their status be higher than Prime Minister Wei's? What was Prime Minister Wei? He was the emperor's official. He bowed to these bumpkins and even the slaves. In other words, Prime Minister Wei represented the emperor and bowed to all the bumpkins in the world. The men of the Tang dynasty were very simple. They were also very emotional. Although this was only said to the veterans. Who were these veterans? They were all people just like them. Some of them were even missing arms and legs. They were more healthy than these people, right? If the emperor could jump into the smelly ditch where they washed their urinals, clothes, and vegetables to clean up the muddy water for them, how could they sit still? Unless his skin was thicker than the city walls. Therefore, on all the streets, groups of old men with crutches were beating gongs to spread the news. As long as they were not bedridden, they should King go to the river to clean up the muddy water for Lao Tzu. Who would not go? Fine. Get out of Chang'an. Because they did not deserve to be called Chang'an people. The people of Chang, and were all King cowards. Why did the emperor do this? Was it not to let the people live a more comfortable life? If the river was cleaned up, everything would be better, right? At the very least, they could wash the chamber pots. No, in such a clean river, who the *CK dared to wash the chamber pots? Lao Tzu would be the first to tear him apart. The men of Guangzhou were so stubborn. When they said that they were going to clean up the muddy water in front of their own homes, who the *CK could sit still? She was so embarrassed that she panicked. Then, from old men in their 80s to children in their 20s or 13 years old, they all carried it on their shoulders. Then, carrying the basket, he jumped into the river and joined the ranks of those who were cleaning the river. The army in charge of clearing the river started from around 5 p.m. to around sunset. The number of people involved in clearing the river had increased from the initial tens of thousands to more than 100,000. In the end, even if no one reminded them, the merchants could no longer sit still. How embarrassing! The commoners had all gone to clean up the river. Even if they shouted themselves hoarse, no one came to look at their goods. They were even met with disdainful looks from the commoners. Could they sit still? They had poured more feces and urine into the river than the commoners, right? He was cleaning up after them. Aren't they ashamed? Even the ancestors of the family couldn't sit still, so this broom ran out and pointed at their noses, scolding them until their parents panicked. As a matter of fact, all the merchants were urging their servants to jump into the smelly ditch to dig out the feces themselves. In the setting sun, Li Shimin stood in the attic of the 3rd floor of the sleeping palace. He looked at the rivers in the setting sun that were originally dazzling like silver ribbons. At this time, they had become pitch black. The veins on the back of his hand that was holding the railing were exposed. Guanin's servant, do you think these 8 rivers can really solve this crisis? Li Shimin muttered to Zhang Sun Wu Go, who was also looking into the distance behind him. Zhang Sun Wu Go pursed her lips and grabbed Li Shimin's hand. She said softly, "Second brother, actually you already have the answer in your heart, right?" The answer. Li Shimin lowered his gaze and looked silently at that slender hand. At this time, there was still a thimble on her hand. Suddenly, Li Shimin remembered that the shoes he had been wearing this year, as well as the shoes worn by the crown prince and the other princes, were all made by his empress. The palace was not so poor that they could not even afford to wear shoes. However, in order to save money, Empress Zhang Sun still insisted on sewing and making shoes by herself. Li Shimin suddenly felt very tired. He felt ashamed to face Zhang Sun Wu Go. In these 2 years, he had been dealing with one problem after another, but he had neglected the person by his side. He was not a qualified husband. As for whether he was a qualified monarch or not, he was a little confused at this time. Since the Wei River Alliance half a year ago, he had been dispirited. He was at a loss when the court was full of impeachment. It was not until the appearance of Zhang Feng that he found a glimmer of light to revive the Tang dynasty. But, when he was in a hurry to prepare for a big fight, he turned his head and found that there was still a sharp blade hanging over his head. 5 surnames and 7 hopes. This fierce tiger that made him afraid finally showed its ferocious teeth this time. He was very afraid. He was very afraid that everything he had done would be turned into ashes with a wave of the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. Alas! Li Shimin sighed deeply. Rubbing Zhang Sun Wu Go's hand, he looked at the red sunset and murmured, "How could I not want to have the answer in my heart?" This Lao Li's speed was really fast. How long had it been? 6 hours? Or 4 hours? How could he encourage so many people to take the initiative to wash the river? Zhang Feng did not believe in heresy. He paced around the crowd and quietly followed them to the Dragon Head West Canal, which was near the Department of Justice near the Spring Bright Gate. Before he reached the river, He could already hear the clamor of shouting and waves of stench. The river channel was clogged all year round. If it was not cleaned up for a long time, then it would be fine. It was only when one walked in that the stench would come. But if someone were to wash it here, then the stench would definitely reach the sky. Zhang Feng pinched his nose and stuck his head out from a small alley behind a tailor shop. His eyes widened. What the hell? Good guy. He saw that in the river channel, everyone was bare-chested, sticking their butts out as they dug the mud. A group of old Navy soldiers were like loaches, diving into the water. As long as they found something hard, they would immediately stick the willow branches in their hands there. In an instant, dozens of people would rush up, as if they wanted to empty the bottom of the river. On the shore, there were all kinds of porcelain fragments, or even intact chamber pots, porcelain, rusty arrow shafts, crossbows, broadswords and bronze swords. They were all casually thrown on the shore. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was drooling. If this was in the future, then these would be priceless treasures. Especially one of the scabbard that was shining with golden light. It made Zhang Feng unable to move his eyes away. This thing was either something that came along with it, or something that was left behind by an important person in some dynasty. This kind of treasure was a scabbard made of pure gold. These simple people, however, did not fight over it. If this was in the future, damn, even a broken tile would be picked up by people in minutes. How could they still see it? At that moment, an old voice rang out from behind Zhang Feng. You're right. You're right. Isn't this shopkeeper Zhang? Zhang Shanren, what are you doing here? This place stinks to the heavens. If you get stained by it, it won't be good. Quickly leave. Zhang Feng was also stunned. Old man, I also want to help. You are all busy, I am just a strong young man. No. The old man was angry. He shouted. Someone come. Zhang Shanren is here. A few young men, come and carry Zhang Shanren back. In this place, we cannot let Zhang Shanren's body be stained. Zhang Feng's face darkened. He was really carried away by a few strong men on their shoulders, as if they were carrying a sack. Chapter 270. Dong, dong, dong. With the sound of 3 morning bells. At the dawn of the east, the civil and military officials, after going through layers of inspection in front of the Vermilion Bird Gate, slowly entered the Vermilion Bird Avenue. All the officials had a heavy heart at this time, but there was a group of people who were staring sharply at Wei Zhang and the others, who were standing at the front of the line. If looks could kill, Wei Zhang and the others would have been killed thousands of times. These people were the officials of the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. Last night, they received a secret letter from the Guanlong group. They impeached Fang Xianling for taking advantage of the responsibility of the Ministry of Works to tamper with the currency without authorization. They impeached Zhang Sun Wuji for colluding with the officials and merchants, which led to the current chaos in Chang'an. They impeached the emperor for ignoring the expectations of the people of the world and using all the silver in the national treasury to buy the so-called seafood from Zhanla without authorization. That kind of thing is absolutely disgusting to look at. This was the emperor's doing? If it wasn't for Wei Zhang, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Zhang Sun Wuji urging, would the emperor be like this? These people should be killed. At this time, Wei Zhang and the others didn't seem to see the eyes of these people. Several people exchanged glances and entered the political announcement hall. Today, the atmosphere in the political announcement hall was a bit strange. No one was like before, whispering in 2s and 3s. It was as if they didn't see the actions of hundreds of thousands of people in Chang'an last night. In this strange atmosphere, Cheng Yaojin finally couldn't resist the feeling of having a knife on his back. The natural military blood made him explode. But just as he was about to burst out, Wei Zhang grabbed his hand and shook his head slightly. The emperor arrives. With the eunuch's shout, everyone hurriedly knelt and shouted in unison, "Welcome the emperor! Long live the emperor!" Li Shimin walked out of the back hall amidst the cheers of the officials. However, this time, Li Shimin did not step onto the 9 steps to heaven's staircase. Instead, he slowly walked to the top of the hall and surveyed the crowd. Wei Zhang nodded slightly, and Li Shimin's expression finally relaxed. His bloodshot eyes finally let go of the last bit of worry. Last night, Li Shimin did not sleep at all. He couldn't sleep. He didn't dare to sleep until he received news of the Eight Rivers Channel. This was because he knew that something was bound to happen at the morning court. But after seeing Wei Zheng's affirmation, Li Shimin was finally relieved. Everyone, rise. Thank you, Your Majesty. Everyone stood up. However, there were still a dozen officials who remained kneeling on the ground. Chapter 271. The person who had been silent all this while. Finally he spoke. Moreover, he was the person that the officials had been impeaching. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but want to hear what Feng Xianling had to say. Originally, the Ministry of Works was a department controlled by people with different surnames. However, the emperor stood his ground and insisted on letting Feng Xianling come. Wasn't this cutting off other people's source of income? How could this be? Among the hundreds of officials, at least 70 of them were kneeling. They were sure that the emperor wouldn't dare to touch them. After all, they were backed by two powerful figures. Li Shimin wouldn't dare. But at this moment, Feng Xianling came out. Everyone couldn't help but look up and look at Feng Xianling and the others with a playful expression. They wanted to see what Feng Xianling had to say. Feng Xianling bowed first and then said loudly, "As for the matters that you have mentioned, I have a different opinion." "Let's hear it." Li Shimin waved his hand and put down the butcher's knife in his heart. "I think that the reform at this time is also a disguised form of benefiting the people. Although the trade routes outside are blocked, it allows all merchants to unleash their potential under such circumstances. I have seen those merchants in Chang'an Market. Many of them didn't panic and didn't suffer any losses. Instead, they made a lot of money. As for the new currency, I also have to report to the emperor. All the currency is transported by horse carriage. Not only is it tedious and cumbersome, but it is also easy to wear and tear. The speed of transactions is greatly reduced. Therefore, the emergence of a new currency is inevitable. I have already seen the results of this in Chang'an. Therefore, I think that both of these matters are correct. As for the sealing of the trade routes, those are just words to confuse the people." Feng Xianling stroked his white beard and stared at Taichung Temple Chief Yu Jinyan. "Lord Yu, were you going to talk about these matters just now? As the chief of Taichung Temple, you don't go to the people to understand. Instead you talk nonsense in the court. Tell me, are you trying to confuse the people with your lies?" Yu Jinyan stood up, neither servile nor overbearing. He bowed and took out a booklet from his bosom. "Your Majesty, this is the result of my investigation in Chang'an." "No need." Li Shimin didn't even look at him. "Yesterday, I received the results of the Imperial Guard's investigation in Chang'an, as well as the Crown Prince. Therefore, I will naturally distinguish who is right and who is wrong. Prime Minister Wei, they say that Antares guards the heart. Don't you have anything to say?" Li Shimin was very angry. How could Wei Zhang still be able to stand at a time like this? If it weren't for Feng Xianling, Ma would have already killed him. "I really don't understand why the imperial astronomer said so. I've been observing the celestial phenomena during this time. The celestial phenomena are indeed abnormal. The Ziwei star is shining, but it is a little similar to Antares. Didn't Lord Chui see this in the ancient books of the imperial astronomer?" "Your Majesty, the Ziwei star is in the world, and the person is in the market of Chang'an. He is an extraordinary person who hasn't appeared for thousands of years. We think that he will definitely solve the crisis this time when the city is sealed." Li Shimin was shocked. Wei Zhang and others were also shocked. How the F***ck could he have foreseen this? Was Yuan Tiangang a god? The Ziwei star. Wasn't that Brother Zhang Feng? This time, he really was the one who resolved the crisis. Thinking of this, Li Shimin smiled. He looked around and said, "Master Yuan is right about this matter. The Ziwei star has appeared. I was almost fooled by your stupidity. Men, drag Chui Fengjun out and punish him with 30 strokes of the cane. There is one more thing that I forgot to mention. What about the city being sealed? Has Chang'an been sealed? Wait and see if the overstocked caravans in Chang and will be sealed in the city. I will remember this account. When the crisis in Chang'an is over, I will have a good talk with you about today's misleading people. Court is dismissed. Chapter 272. The crisis was lifted? So fast. This time, Yuan Tiangang was also shocked. He had not slept for 2 days because of this matter. He had been investigating how to solve the crisis in Chang'an. However, except for the appearance of the Z-Wei star, all the clues revolved around this Z-Wei star. Did the emperor find this Z-Wei star? If not, how could the emperor solve the crisis in Chang'an city so quickly? According to the 9 changes 8 diagrams, all the channels in Chang'an city were blocked. This, as he walked, Yuan Tiangang ignored the greetings of the crowd. His hands were quickly making seals. However, today's seal made Yuan Tiangang surprised. Because the seal this time in the land of death yesterday, there was actually a glimmer of light. This, Yuan Tiangang was shocked. Dilemma. What was the solution to the dilemma? Yuan Tiangang thought hard and searched in his heart. He even used the 5 elements algorithm that he didn't want to use the most. Finally, he stood on the Suzaku Bridge in horror and looked at the rolling water under his feet. Water. The solution to the crisis in the imperial city is actually water. Right, water is good at healing. It is supposed to clean up the blockage. This hexagram is full of blockage, but there is a trace of water machine. Is this? Yuan Tiangang couldn't help but think of the sensational thing that happened in Chang'an yesterday afternoon. Basically, the entire Chang'an city was involved in a huge project to clean up the river. Although everyone said that it was to clean up the river, make the river clear and beautiful, the emperor thought that these rivers affected the beauty. However, judging from the hexagram at this time, it didn't seem to be as simple as imagined. But as for what was not simple, he couldn't tell. Is this the solution to the crisis in Chang'an? But these 8 rivers, 8 dragon veins. How to solve the crisis? Yuan Tiangang walked away in confusion. In the deep palace of Taiji Palace, Wei Zhang, Feng Xianling, Du Ruhui, Zhang Sun Wuji, Cheng Yaojin, and others sat together again and drank tea slowly. It was as if everything that had happened in the main hall had nothing to do with them. A few moments later, Li Shimin returned to Taiji Palace in high spirits. As soon as they entered the door, Li Shimin waved his hand and asked everyone to sit down. Then he said, "This time, we have openly fallen out with the people of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs, as well as the Guanlong 8 tribes. Is the river channel really cleaned up this time?" "Reporting to your majesty." Wei Zhang stood up and bowed. "Everything is ready. Last night, the Navy veterans used dozens of boats of different weights to test the river. There was no obstruction at all." "All right." Li Shimin waved his robe. "Then immediately arrange this matter for me. I want to see all the people of the caravan evacuate from Chang'an before tonight." "As you command." Everyone left in a hurry. In the end, Li Shimin stopped Cheng Yaojin and said, "General Cheng, this time, I have to trouble you to send your most capable men to personally escort along the way and cooperate with the veterans to ensure the safety of the people along the way. If anyone blocks them, kill them." Cheng Yaojin heard this and hurriedly saluted. "Your Majesty, leave this matter to me. You can rest assured. But there is one thing that I don't understand." "Speak." Li Shimin sat next to Cheng Yaojin and asked, "If there are people of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs or people of Guanlong blocking the way, should I fight or not?" "This?" Li Shimin frowned. This time, if he fought, it was tantamount to completely falling out with Guanlong. Now was not the time. But if he didn't fight, what would he do if he encountered them? This was something that Li Shimin hadn't thought of. Although there were many dangerous rivers along the way, these were not a problem. If Cheng Yaojin could deal with them, and with the tens of thousands of navy, they would definitely be able to deal with them. However, Li Shimin was still a little hesitant about Guanlong. To fight or not to fight? This was the main problem now. "Your Majesty, I have an idea, but I don't know if I should say it." At this moment, Little Gizi said hesitantly. Li Shimin's eyes lit up. The reason why Little Gizi had always been by his side was that he had followed him since he was young, so there was no need to worry about his loyalty. More importantly, he was intelligent. If it weren't for the fact that eunuchs couldn't participate in politics, Li Shimin would have promoted him to an official long ago. Now that little Gizi had spoken, Li Shimin couldn't help but be interested. Your Majesty, I think that if we disguise General Cheng's subordinates as the guards of these merchants, wouldn't that work? Moreover, the people of the military are straightforward and rough, very similar to those servants. They are suitable for fighting in all kinds of terrains and can form all kinds of battle formations at any time. If each merchant group is accompanied by 30 guards, we can ensure that this matter will be foolproof. Approved. Li Shimin didn't even think about it. He directly clapped his hands and made the decision. Chang Yaojin's eyes also revealed a look of understanding. He got up and cupped his fists, saying, I will go now. With the identity of a guard, I am not afraid of anything. Chapter 273. In Zhang Feng's shop. At this moment, Uncle He, Zhuzi's father, and the best matchmaker in the city were all sitting together in his small tavern, looking at Zhang Feng meaningfully. Zhang Feng's head was about to explode. 3 jugs of wine had already been served. Several plates of dishes had been eaten. He even saw the matchmaker kick a large plate of meat into her pocket. However, they had been sitting there for 4 hours and still had no intention of leaving. How could Zhang Feng not know their purpose for coming? What could they do when the matchmaker was here? Uncle He seemed to think that Zhang Feng's brain was too slow and could only wave his hand to stop him from wiping the counter that was about to be torn. Fengzi, come and sit down. The old elementary scholar will be here soon. Zhang Feng was a little afraid of the old elementary scholar. There was no other reason than that mouth of hers. He couldn't stand it. Why would the old elementary scholar come here for no reason? Zhang Feng continued to play dumb, but he also knew that he could not avoid it. He helplessly hung his head and sat on the table. At this moment, the matchmaker stared at Zhang Feng and clicked her tongue. Her mouth was like a cricket's and Zhang Feng almost slapped her. After looking at him for a long time, the matchmaker finally nodded and seemed satisfied. After a while, the old elementary scholar strode into the small tavern and pushed Zhang Feng away with a slap. He sat on Zhang Feng's stool and poured himself a bowl of wine. After drinking a bowl of food happily, he said, I went to see that family. They accepted the gift and I also met their daughter. She is very beautiful and can give birth to a son. Wait. Zhang Feng exploded. He hurriedly asked, Old elementary scholar, you want to get married? Which family's daughter is blind? No, I mean, she has such a good eye for a gentleman and likes you? The old elementary scholar's face immediately darkened. He glared at Zhang Feng but did not argue. Old man is thinking for you. Originally, old man thought that by finding a marriage for you, he could get a free drink in the future. Now it seems that this is what Zhang Feng thinks of the old man? No. How can that be? You're an old man of great talent and wealth. I'm afraid I can't even catch up to you. Zhang Feng felt a headache coming on. Old man continued to flatter the old scholar, but the old scholar didn't seem to hear him. He talked to the matchmaker in a low voice for a while, then slowly took out a jade pendant from his chest and sighed. This jade pendant was originally prepared by old man's mother for my future wife, but I'm all alone now and I'm afraid there's no hope. So I'll leave it to you, brat. Take it as a congratulatory gift from old man. Don't refuse. This piece of jade is rumored to be an antique from the Qin dynasty. The old scholar's heart ached. Zhang Feng had a headache. Chapter 274. In Li Shimin's palace. It was rare for Li Shimin to have a good sleep. After yesterday's morning court, he was in a good mood. He drank a jar of Zhang Feng's wine with Yuan Tiangang and left after Yuan Tiangang repeatedly praised it. This made Li Shimin's mood particularly comfortable. Even someone as strong as Yuan Tiangang didn't expect that he could use the Chong and 8 rivers to solve this crisis. How could Yuan Tiangang be amazed? Li Shimin, who was in a good mood, fell asleep after a tender moment with Empress Zhang's son. This was the first good sleep he had since he knew that Guanlong was going to stir up trouble. However, as soon as he woke up from such a good sleep, he received a piece of disturbing bad news. Seeing that Li Shimin had woken up, Xiao Gizi helped him dress and eat. Then he said, "Your Majesty, Prime Minister Wei and Lord Zhang's son have been waiting outside the palace for a long time." Hearing this, Li Shimin didn't take it seriously and waved his hand. "Send them in and have a drink with me." A moment later, as soon as Wei Zhang and Zhang's son Wuji entered the door, they knelt in front of Li Shimin with a plop. Li Shimin, who was in a good mood, knew that something had happened when they knelt. How could he be in the mood to eat at this time? Throwing away his chopsticks and dismissing all the palace maids and eunuchs, Li Shimin asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" If nothing had happened, would they be like this? That would be like encountering a ghost. Wei Zhang and Zhang's son Wuji looked at each other. Zhang's son Wuji said, "Your Majesty, something has happened. The water of the Chang and 8 rivers can indeed carry ships, but I don't know what happened to the ships. I don't know if the water is too shallow or something else, but most of the ships are in trouble." "What happened?" "They sank." "How could it be? Didn't you say that they had been tested by the Navy? How could something have happened?" Li Shimin was angry. This was the last thing he wanted to hear. But at this time, something really happened. How could he not be worried? "Your Majesty, we've asked the Navy soldiers. They mentioned something about load capacity, water draft, and so on. I don't understand either, but the general idea is that the riverbed of the 8 rivers is full of stones. Large ships can't enter, and most of the small cargo ships would be pierced by the stones at the bottom of the river before they could even leave Chang'an's boundary." "What? This? How is this possible? Then have the merchants' goods been saved?" "The goods are fine, but the joy they had just built was shattered once again. Some people even fainted on the spot. The two of them didn't dare to imagine what they were seeing. If His Majesty knew, then..." But how could Li Shimin not imagine such a scene? Although they only concealed the worst part, how could he not know how miserable it was to hear such things from their mouths? Chapter 277. Li Shimin ignored Zhang Feng's last words. He even automatically filtered out Zhang Feng's last words. However, he remembered the raft incident. Raft. How could I forget such a thing? As long as you can remember this point, I will. Bamboo raft. Wooden raft. I don't have any ready-made ones, but I can dismantle the hull of a large ship to make one. This would perfectly filter out the danger of the ship's bottom being smashed by rocks. Why didn't anyone think of such a simple method? Why didn't anyone think of such a simple method at this time? Was it too complicated? Or did everyone's thinking go astray? However, Li Shimin sincerely admired Zhang Feng. At the very least, he recalled Zhang Feng's disdainful question when he first arrived. "That's it?" Li Shimin felt that Zhang Feng was asking for a beating, but now, "I'm the one who's really an idiot." "Brother Zhang Feng, is it really possible to do something as simple as a raft? If it's possible, why didn't anyone think of it before?" "This, how would I know?" "If you want to ask His Majesty. To be honest, you only need to look at the geese on the water to understand. None of you can think of it. I'm simply..." "Enough." Li Shimin was flustered. He hurriedly got up to leave. His Majesty is still waiting for this matter. Lord Zhang's son should be coming to my residence to find a solution soon. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Sorry for the disturbance. Goodbye." Li Shimin finished speaking and was about to leave. Wei Zhang immediately followed. Only Zhang's son Wuji, who was holding a prawn, was stunned. After a moment, he slowly took out an ingot of gold from his pocket and prepared to leave. Zhang Feng was also stunned. "Wait. Don't leave yet. Hey." Lao Tzu hasn't finished speaking. When Li Shimin heard this, he slowly withdrew his foot that had already stepped out of the tavern. Zhang Feng said angrily, "I haven't finished speaking, and you're already running away? Aren't you afraid of getting beaten up when you go back? This method is only the beginning. After the goods leave the shoal, we still have to change ships. Now, your boats should all be gondolas, right? As he spoke, Zhang Feng knew that they wouldn't understand, so he drew a cross-section of the ship with some wine on the table. Zhang Sun Wuji looked at it and nodded. Yes, all the ships of the Tang dynasty are basically like this. But the bottom of the five-tooth warship is semicircular, even a little like an egg. That's right. Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Come and sit, don't be impatient." There's a big difference in this matter. The reason why the bottom of your ship was smashed is basically because the surface area of the bottom in the water is too large. And the speed of this thing can't be maximized. If you change the method and change to a ship with a smaller surface area, not only can the speed be maximized, but the probability of the hull being hit will also be greatly reduced. Chapter 279. No. There must be a problem somewhere. Li Shimin frowned and gestured for everyone to fish out the ship. Li Shimin held it in his hand and looked at it carefully. What exactly went wrong? Li Shimin could not help but look at the ink in the brush washer. That's right. From the iron kettle that Zhang Feng showed me earlier to the brush washer, water had been added to it. Is it because there's no water in the ship? Someone fill the iron ship with water. Yes. The person who had just presented the iron ship was so scared that he was trembling all over. He had wanted to show it off properly, but he did not expect that he would screw it up and sink the ship. At this moment, he panicked. He hurriedly followed Li Shimin's instructions and used a sharp object to pry open a part of the iron ship that seemed to be filled with quicksand. Then, under everyone's gaze, the person nervously placed the model of the ship in the water and carefully washed the model again with the sand inside. Then, he slowly filled the model with water according to the ink in the brush washer. Half an hour. He did this for a full half an hour. Everyone watched with bated breath for half an hour. When the ship was placed steadily on the water, everyone was shocked. Even Li Shimin was dumbfounded. The model of the ship slowly moved forward in the water tank along with the splashing waves. The water line on the side of the ship was also slowly stabilizing. Everyone from the Ministry of Works who knew how to build ships was shocked. F***CK. Luban, is this Luban alive? Ship. Iron ship. Can it really float on the water? How is this possible? How can iron float on the water? This has never been recorded in any of the ancient books. The people from the Ministry of Works were completely shocked. What is this? This is a miracle. This is a miracle that the heavens have bestowed upon the Tang dynasty. All the old men from the Ministry of Works collapsed to the ground the moment they saw the model of the iron ship floating on the water tank. He muttered and roared in horror. Who the hell is this? Who the F***CK came up with such a thing? Other than Lu Ban, the old man can't think of anyone else in the world who can make iron float on water. No. Even Lu Ban can't do it. Such a thing, could it be? That Master Yuan mentioned that the Ziwei star had brought to the Tang dynasty? Everyone was aghast. They roared crazily, venting the shock in their hearts. It was as if they had forgotten the existence of the emperor. They were a bunch of lunatics. A bunch of lunatics obsessed with all kinds of research. Before they saw something, they might not have any expression. They were very pedantic and basically followed the prescribed order. But once they saw something new, then, they would erupt with frightening infatuation and madness. Even if they were to sacrifice their lives, they would not hesitate to do so. Chapter 280. Heh! Did you know? Those merchant ships have all been stranded. Now, everyone outside Chang'an City is crazily scrambling for goods. Those fur products worth dozens of taels of silver have all been taken away. What? Where? 10 miles away from the city. I heard that many merchants can't take it anymore and hung themselves. Hiss. It's over. It's over. I heard that the emperor offended the Guanlong group. Looks like the emperor is in danger this time. Isn't that so? Sigh. Such rumors were spreading everywhere in Chang'an City. Some people were even driving ox carts, donkey carts, and even mules out of the city. At this moment, at the city gate, groups of people could be seen returning to the city with piles of wet goods in their arms. Everyone was bragging about the prosperous scene outside the city. It was as if something had fallen from the sky. The greedy crowd rushed out of the city even more desperately. Right at this moment, from within the imperial city, the sound of drums that would only be heard when there was an emergency were fiercely beaten by someone. Dong, dong, dong. As the sound of the ancient drum beat slowly spread out from the depths of the imperial city, everyone was terrified. Even the commoners who were holding the goods were stunned on the spot. What's going on? This drum is the horn used to gather the Chang'an garrison in case of an emergency battle. Is the Turks attacking? F***CK. Run. In the Chamberlain of Dependencies, the young Khagan of the Western Turks frowned as he stared out of the city. What's going on? What's going on outside? Could it be that our people are here? Hearing this, the purple-robed Khagan's follower hurried out. A moment later, he returned like a ghost. Reporting to the Khagan, there are rumors outside the city that the ships of the merchants who stayed in Chang and have been sunk. All their goods are piled up in the forest 10 miles away from the city. Someone is deliberately spreading rumors to rob the goods. Oh! The purple-robed Khagan's lips curled up slightly. It would be fine if it was not their men. Pass down my order. Tell all the spies to stay put. Without my orders, no one is allowed to leave the city. This. Little Khan, this is... Little Khan tilted his head slightly, his bewitching narrow eyes glancing at the man. This must be Li Shimin's scheme. Otherwise, why would there be rumors in the city that the Turks have come? And he even mobilized the Chang'an garrison? Do you think Li Shimin is an idiot? I wouldn't dare. The people behind him hurriedly dispersed. On the other hand, the burly Tuyuhan youth who was guarding beside the little Khan frowned slightly but did not move. As for the Tubo man who had ridiculously long arms, he made a rare gesture towards a stall outside the Chamberlain of Dependencies and did not make any more movements. This made little Khan's smile grow even wider. Looks like you guys didn't do it either. Could it be that Li Shimin wants to take this opportunity to clean up all the Guanlong group in Chang'an City? No way. Based on our understanding of Li Shimin, he will not start a war with the Guanlong group. It would be great if he did. The burly Tuyuhan man clenched his fists and turned to leave, leaving only the little Khan and the long-armed Tubo youth. Do you think that Li Shimin wants to lure us out? Not interested. This was the reply of the long-armed youth. Little Khan's gaze became more and more playful. She fiddled with a wolf fong on her ear, thinking about something. At that moment, the galloping sounds of the cavalry made the smile on little Khan's face widen. Ta-ta-ta. Following the sound of hooves, little Khan also left the window. At this moment, there was nothing to see. Fight. If there is a need to fight, this Khan can do it for you and provoke a war. At the city gate, a group of imperial guards hurriedly held up a small yellow flag and dashed through the crowd. As they ran, the group of imperial guards shouted, "Close the city gate. No one is allowed to enter or leave the city without orders. Those who disobey will be beheaded." What? Everyone was shocked when they heard that. When the general of the city gate heard that, he trembled and screamed, "Close the city gate!" Smash, smash, smash. Following a series of muffled noises, the huge Anhua Gate, Illustrious Virtue Gate, Xianxia Gate, and all the other city gates of Chang, and lit up with fire beacons that had been prepared long ago. At this moment, the entire Chang'an city was shocked. Everyone looked at the billowing smoke with fear. Just as everyone was terrified, squads of imperial guards shuttled through every market square. Everyone, go back home. You can only go out tomorrow. Those who disobey orders and go out without permission will be killed by fate. Everyone, get the hell back to your homes. Before sunrise tomorrow, kill anyone you meet in Chang and without mercy. This time, everyone was really scared. A sense of danger rushed to their brains between their mouths and nostrils. The world was going to change. At this moment, Wei Shuyu's ghostly voice sounded behind the two of them. Are you going to take the poison and commit suicide? You will understand that this world is not as beautiful as you imagine it to be. You've heard it too. If my subordinates couldn't hold themselves back and killed these commoners today, and you happen to be here, can you imagine the consequences? Li Chengqian closed his eyes in pain. However, the insults those people said to Chang Yaojin still flashed in his mind. If it were him, he would definitely order people to kill them. If you really want to kill them, then you have fallen into a trap. Chang Yaojin's eyes flashed with horror. He continued, they are forcing us to act. Once we act, we will kill the commoners by mistake. The old man will also be punished for their crimes. Regardless of whether it is true or not, regardless of whether your father knows the old man's character, my Qing family will be destroyed. Do you know? Li Chengqian fell silent. At this time, if he still didn't understand, then he would be a fool. It was also at this time that Li Chengqian realized the treachery. He had always thought that the Guanlong group was just a group of merchants. However, after investigating yesterday, he was shocked to find out that the earliest incarnation of the Guanlong 8 great families was actually the Northern Army and a group of merchants who formed an alliance. After all these years of development, they had even infiltrated many people in the imperial court. Uncle Cheng, I understand now. It's good that you understand. In the future, learn more from your father. Actually, you don't understand your father. The atmosphere fell silent again. This was because they had already arrived at the city gate. A large group of people had gathered at the city gate. They had snatched the goods and were preparing to enter the city. At this time, they were cursing the guards on the city wall. When they saw Chang Yaojin and the rest, they surrounded them again. Chang Yaojin's eyes turned cold. He waved his hand and said, arrest all those who have goods in their hands. Li Chengqian was shocked. He hurriedly asked, Uncle Cheng, these are commoners. You can't arrest them. And this is the city gate. If you arrest them, it will definitely cause a commotion. A commotion? Chang Yaojin smiled when he saw the imperial guards swarming forward. Do you know that the goods outside the city haven't decreased at all? Then tell me, where did these goods come from? Chapter 284. Li Chengqian was horrified to find that it was just as Chang Yaojin said. It seemed that the goods had always been handled by the bodyguards. Where did this large batch of goods come from? Moreover, the goods in the Shirley Slope were all dry and not so wet. But what about the goods in these people's arms? They were all dripping with water. There was an even more horrifying thing that made Li Chengqian realize that this was a complete conspiracy. As early as noon, he had received a rumor that the ship was seriously damaged and all the goods were forced to move to the Shirley Slope. At this time, in such hot weather, even if they were soaked in water, they would not be dripping with water. But what about the goods in these people's hands? They were all dripping with water. The Guanlong group's conspiracy was really vicious. Li Chengqian suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He did not know how many more conspiracies were waiting for him in Chang'an City. It was already like this outside the city. When he left the city, many people had already sneaked into the city. Then inside the city, he did not dare to think about it. He only hoped that the people in the city were controlled. Was this a battle between two forces? Li Chengqian suddenly had a suspicion. He wondered what he would do if he was in charge of this matter. He could not think of it. That was the most terrifying thing. Just as Chang Yaojin said, he was too emotional and too indecisive. At this time, Chang Yaojin turned around and patted him on the shoulder. He sighed and said, born in the royal family, no one is born cold-blooded, but everyone's position is different. So, Chengqian, you have to quickly get used to your identity. Your identity is the crown prince. All the indecisiveness is holding you back and may even lead to the destruction of the Tang dynasty. So, quickly become stronger. After all, we are all old. Hearing that, Li Chengqian's expression suddenly changed. Looking at Chang Yaojin's fluttering hair under the golden helmet, It had already turned gray. Only then did he remember that his imperial father was also like this. Ah. Thank you, Uncle Cheng. I understand. Ha ha ha. Let's go into the city. Cheng Yaojin did not even turn his head. He smiled and waved his hand. Only then did the crowd slowly escort the hundreds of people into Chang'an. Smash, smash, smash. When the heavy city gates slowly opened, a loud noise could be heard. Cheng Yaojin, who was wearing a mask, walked in front of the crowd with a long-handled battle axe in his hand. His entire body was emitting waves of murderous aura, causing those who were still at the city gates to be aghast. What's the situation? Look. Demon King Cheng can't even take out his weapon. Heavens! Could it be that he killed all the people in the 10-mile slope? Look at the people behind their horses. F***CK. Why were they scurrying around like dumplings? Is this even something a human would do?